Yo, yo, what up? What up? Mike check 1 2 1 2. Mike check 1 2 1 2. I'm checking in on a Wednesday, man. I have to, give you guys a little break on Labor Day. I know people were doing their fantasy football barbecue and the things like that. And I figured, you know what? You go ahead and check in on a Wednesday for y'all real quick. Thumbs up in the chat, man. We got a lot to holler about today, man. Good to see you guys. Feels like it's been eons, but I'm here. We are here. And we're only days away from LL Cool J and Q-Tip dropping their highly anticipated album. Man, I'm looking forward to it. The Force. I do want to start things off by giving a rest in peace to Fat Man Scoop, man. R.I.P. Fat Man Scoop. Fat Man Scoop is he is a voice that we're always gonna remember in this culture. I know that it's so many people who add so many different elements to this thing we call hip hop and this hip hop universe that unfortunately we don't give everybody their flowers while they're here. Um, and sometimes it happens in this way where someone's untimely passing gives us the time to reflect on how important they are and how important that their voice is to the culture. You're not gonna hear a mix without hearing that Fat Man Scoop mix. What's your zodiac sign and the faith? I never knew a love like this before. And if you didn't know who Fat Man Scoop was, you even heard that. So rest in peace to him. He's gonna lose control. Excuse me, Missy and Sierra, and also the Timbaland and Magoo. What was that? Dang. Uh, Not breathe in, breathe out, but you know what song I'm talking about. It'll come to me in a second. But we all know that record when we hear that. Dun, 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 dun. Don't want to get no copyright strikes. But yes, rest in peace to Fat Man Scoop. He was doing what he loved best. He was performing, he was on stage, and yo, drop. That's what it was. Thank you, Fantasy. Now drop, now drop, now drop, now drop. Man, that shit was a banger. You know, and rest in peace to Magoo too, man. It's like forget about that. Forgot about the fact that we, lost Magoo as well. So prayers up to him and his family, or prayers up to his family and the people who loved him and his constant collaborators too, friends and family. Man, that's a tremendous loss for the culture, and we really, really appreciate his impact and his contributions to hip hop. Now Monday, I was also doing the fantasy football draft, which had me pretty much caught up between that and barbecuing and all that. And I'm sure everybody was doing similar things. Thumbs up in the chat. Football season's on the way, man. It starts tomorrow. I actually got Kansas City's kicker. I don't know if Kansas City's going to repeat. They look like they were kind of at the end of their rope last year and last Super Bowl, but hey, they pulled it out. Can't really call it, but I'm excited about the fact that I had the opportunity to draft Joe Burrow. So my front line looks like Joe Burrow at quarterback. Then I got Gibbs from Detroit as my running back. Ha! And we got Slim Shady over here, Shady Burrow. And then I got Williams from the Rams. It's my other running back. So I love my front line right now. I'm definitely going to be checking for tomorrow's game just on general purposes, but I also got Kansas City's kicker. So I love the fact that I got that going on. Shout out to the real Leonard Washington talking about fly, eagle, fly. In other news, though, I do think that the Atlanta Falcons have a great opportunity to finally win the division. Kirk Cousins is getting high marks. Running back is getting high marks as well, and the defense is better, and it really helps that our division is weak as hell. So we're going to see what the Falcons can do this year. I'm excited about it. Atlanta's always on fire when the Falcons are on fire. I will say this. The Falcons are that one team that Atlanta unifies to support. I think the Braves have their demographic and their audience and the people who love baseball like myself. And the Hawks, I don't think the Hawks have really gotten a solidified fan base like ever in this city, unfortunately. I think Dominique was probably the closest that we got to that. Even when we were really good, when we had Bud here as the coach and we had Joe Johnson as our, I guess, marquee player, if you will, max player, if you will. We had Al Horford And when we had teams that were winning, upwards to 50 something to lower 60 games, I still don't think the Atlanta Hawks had the kind of fan base that their record warranted. But I will say that the Falcons probably have the most loyal Atlanta base. And so when the Falcons are good, city's on fire. When we had Michael Vick, there was nothing that you could compare to the type of electricity that Michael Vick being in Atlanta in the early 2000s brought, man. Like, remember Vic was in the Rubber Band Man video with Tip? Like, come on, man. Thumbs up in the chat for that, man. I do want to address Tip too in this show because I know I put on the Atlanta list, I had Outkast #1, which many felt was a cop-out. I even feel myself it was a cop-out, to be honest with you. But if we remove Andre and Big Boy as a unit, I got T.I. as the #1 MC coming out of Atlanta. And I think that his legacy and his resume just it gets understated. And I know that some of his legal issues have probably played a part in that. But when we talk about Wayne, Hot Boys, and what Wayne was able to do in his era and even beyond, it's hard to overlook not only Tip's resume, but his skill set. And his ability to adjust and be agile to every single thing he got on. So I do want to talk about T.I. For a quick second too on this show as well. Maul with the super chat says the Falcons passing game is about to be potent this season. Drake London's numbers will go up. Okay. A lot of faith in Kirk Cousins out there. I feel you. Listen, this is my thing on the Kirk Cousins issue. Well, not issue, but situation, if you will. I think that for a quarterback that is coming off injury and that is of his age and has only won one playoff game his whole career, I think he was slightly overpaid. No, not slightly overpaid. He was overpaid. And then when you go and draft a quarterback as opposed to lineman or anything else to support that quarterback in the position that you did in the draft, it's even more confusing. It's like, okay, well, did you pay that much to have somebody basically tutor your next guy? I don't know. But at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins winning. You know what I'm saying? If you're able to pay that much, or earn that much or warrant that much off of the resume that you have, and then you might not even keep that starting job, you're winning, man. I got to give him credit. But we're going to see what he does. We need him to be the one, actually. We don't need to throw our draft pick out there this quick. But we're going to see in the first week what this NFL season is going to, kind of shape up to be. I'm looking forward to seeing Kansas City tomorrow night and see exactly how they look out there. They're going to look as dominant as they once were. Shout out to Kansas City. Shout out to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes was so. You know what? Mahomes and Steph remind me so much of each other in many different ways. But Mahomes is the killer when it comes to the big games. Steph getting that contract, man. Listen, it's hard for me to say that Steph don't deserve whatever. Well deserved over his career. His legacy is insane, but they're not even a playoff team right now. And I guess Steph still sells tickets because he's Steph Curry. He's the greatest shooter of all time. He's still the greatest shooter of all time. Like, him being the greatest shooter of all time is not one of those things that was like, okay, 2-3 years ago. He proved in the Olympics he's still the greatest shooter of all time. And I think that at this point in his career, whether they're a playoff team or not, people will come to see Steph. And they will make sure they come to see Steph. But I want to talk about Cool J and the Force. So we can get on some music early. Joe Burrow got no rings. He doesn't. He's what's season 5? We'll see. OG Weston with the super chat says trap music, King, Paper Trail are classics, hands down. Urban Legend is up there too. Facts, Mike. Okay, are we gonna talk? Y'all want to talk T.I.? Y'all want to talk this LL Cool J thing? because I'm kind of psyched to talk about both, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, we can go either way, man. LL Cool J is the GOAT. Okay. All right. I do want to talk LL. The Force coming out Friday, LL Cool J, and Q-Tip produced the whole album. You know what? Let me start here because Friday, and I didn't even get a chance to speak on this, and I know the record leaked. What up, Judgment Day, Terminator 2? I know the record leaked, and thumbs up in the chat for this because I'm going to talk some Eminem stuff real quick, right? Mad Max with the super chat says, them joints ain't 5 mics. They're not classic. Okay. I heard the Murdergram record, Murdergram, what is it, Deluxe or something like that. This is what I will say about the record. LL Cool J is spitting on there. He is. And Eminem has a lot of suspect bars in there. The whole let me be frank, like Sinatra, or the what did he say? The Katrina. He says, call her Katrina because somebody need to get her a cane or something like that. Paraphrasing. He also ended the song like this was supposed to be the ending bar. Like this was the one. He was like going back to Cali so he could play your sax or something, some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like this is the guy that people call a primetime lyricist. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think, let me be frank, like Sinatra is a 10 lyricist. Now, we can say a lot about people's voices, we can say a lot about people's flow. Over time, those things kind of, taper off a little bit, your practice or, just the durability of your voice and the fact that maybe you've done a lot of performances, maybe you've done a lot of recording. But that pen doesn't age unless you lose your damn mind. You know what I'm saying? So when you're this deep in your career and you're on a record with another legend like a LL Cool J, and you say a line like, let me be frank, like Sinatra, or the somebody get her a cane, Katrina line, it's like, that's whack. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't matter who said it or whatever, but that's not top-notch lyricism, guys. And I think that narrative of saying that, Eminem is this and that as a lyricist, that's why I always ask, like, what lyrics are we talking about? Like, what lyrics were so clever where you're like, you know what? That is top-notch lyrical bar work. Let's see. I want to give some examples myself. So I'm not sitting here just, spitting at the wind. Miles Several, the super chat says Eminem is probably the king of corny bars that everyone calls lyrical because he got rhyme schemes going with it. Trash. Yes. I mean, rhyme schemes and lyricism are two different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you have intricate rhyme schemes doesn't make you a supreme lyricist. I think Ludacris has incredible rhyme schemes. You know what I mean? But lyrically, I can't say that if we're just talking about just straight up lyrics and straight up bars and creativity with the bars on a scale from 1 to 10, Luda's probably like 6 or 7, something like that. You know what I mean? Like many people will sit here and tell you that Eminem is a better lyricist than Cameron. And I would beg to differ because I think the things that Cam says and how he puts them together are so lyrically creative. I've never heard that same thing from M. Or maybe M in his prime. I think where M really wins as a lyricist, I'm going to be perfectly honest and balanced here, is his storytelling. His storytelling ability is high level. And I think when you're a great storyteller, we're going to get into this when I get Siobhan on the line and we're going to talk about our matchups a little bit. Because I asked him, like, where are Jay-Z's stories? But whatever, we'll talk about that in a second. I think when you're a top-notch storyteller, yes, that makes you a top-notch lyricist. I think that's where Eminem's strongest lyrical components are. But if we're just talking about wordplay, and we're talking about bar for bar, I'm gonna need people to break down the bars because I don't feel like lyrically is that strong. I think we're talking more so about rhyme scheme and cadences. Um, but anyway, on that record, LL killed it. You know what I'm saying? I think LL's the highlight of it. And y'all know Q-Tip is my guy. Q-Tip is my, for the people who are just now tuning in or who haven't been a part of this channel for a long period of time. Q-Tip is my favorite hip hop artist overall. We're talking about being able to produce, DJ, rhyme, being a front man of the group. You know what I'm saying? Like performance, all of those things. Q-Tip is my guy. He's my number one. I'm excited about this LL album because he's producing it. And LL's coming back. I love the combination. I think it's very interesting. We can get anything from some street shit to vibrant thing, I'm sure, or some jazzy shit, or doing it, whatever. But it's always confusing to me, and I've spoken at nauseum about this on this podcast as well. Why does everybody change up their production style whenever Eminem's on the track, man? As great as LL performed on this record, and he performed very well on this record, sonically, I think that this is a step below, from a production standpoint, anything I've heard from Q-Tip from a very long time. And that's only because he was trying to do that little wonky, Slim Shady type production. Is it something that's written out there where if you work with him, he has to help you produce the track or something? Mad Max of the Super Chat says Joe's the only quarterback who beat Pat and had the refs cheating him the next year so Pat could get to the Super Bowl again. Give my boy a line to buy some time. Joe packing everybody up. Pat rather see Lamar. He's talking about Joe Burrow. I hope you're right, man, because that's my quarterback, man. I need Joe Burrow to get me 25 points a week. Joe Shady need to give me 25 points a week. But yes, the beat, I'm just gonna say it. The beat's whack, man. And it's a pattern, man. It's like we saw this with Renegade, and I know y'all not gonna agree with me on this. The beat for Renegade is whack. And if anybody's honest with themselves, and I'm gonna ask Siobhan this when he gets on the line too, what's the weakest beat on the blueprint? I mean, we gotta be like, if you are a rapper and you're listening to every beat on the blueprint, or even on this LL album that we've heard so far, you're listening to every single beat. If you're a rapper, songs ain't made on these yet. You telling me you're picking this beat? Now let's go a step further. You listening to the Black Album. The Black Album has stellar production from front to back. We've talked about this. I said the Renegade beat is fire. Listen. You don't know it's fire. That beat is fire. Song Cries beat is fire. There's levels to this, man. Heart of the City's beat is fire. Takeover's beat is fire. Girls, original and remix beat is fire. Shit, even Izzo's beat is dope. The Ruler's Back. I mean, All I Need. Mama Loves Me. These beats are dope. That Renegade beat is not dope like that, man. It's not. And let's be real, man. Yeah, I mean, listen, for the time, yeah, I guess if you were around in 2001 and you heard Trackmaster style and its beats or whatnot like that, you would have picked Jigga That Nigga Jigga. Yeah, somebody would have picked that beat. That sounds like something that was on the radio. Now, if you stylistically feel like Renegade's a better beat than that, I totally disagree. But I guess there's an argument there, but ain't nobody in the world at that time specifically picking that Renegade beat over the Jigga That Nigga Jigga beat. Come on, guys. Let's be honest, man. But anyway, let's look at the Black Album. You're telling me the beat for Moment of Clarity, you're picking that when you got 99 Problems beat here, you got PSA's beat here, you got Encore's beat here, you got shit, even Allure, even Dirt Off Your Shoulders, even What More Can I Say? You're picking that beat last. Yes, those are the best two produced J albums. I agree with that, OG Weston. But yes, let me get back to Murder Grave. So as great as LL's performance is on there, I think this is going to be another EPMD2 situation where this is going to be the low point of the album because production wise, I mean, I guess Q-Tip did what he set out to do on this track, but at what point does this great lyricist in Marshall Mathers not adjust to who he's making a record with? Why is it that J.O. Renegade, and we know that song already existed, even EPMD 2, shout out to Hit Boy, and even like this record, why you gotta adjust to him like the wah 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 and all this stuff? It's like that's not where y'all were going sonically, but we'll hear Friday if that's where they were going sonically. But to me, right now, I think that's probably the weakest record I've heard of the four. And it's unfortunate because it's one of LL's stronger performances of the records that I've heard so far. Hold on, let me let Sharon know real quick. Hold on 1 second, guys. Sure. Um, yeah, I think that of the records I've heard so far, it's probably the weakest one. I like the Sweetie record. I like what they were able to do with that. It's a good mix. It's a good mix. I think it's going to be one of those that actually fits within the scheme of the album. But one of the things that I'm seeing from this album, and it's to no one's fault. It's just how the game has changed. I think that they're trying to roll this out in a traditional album way, and I'm interested to see how it's going to connect. Because LL is one of those guys who, well, not one of those guys. He's like the only guy who was able to be mainstream in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and even in the 2010s, maybe not as an artist, but more so as a personality and as a figure. And from what we're seeing right now, he's mainstream right now. I'm sorry, man. People keep calling me. Jeez. He's mainstream right now in the 2010s. I mean, 2020s. Even with this rollout, I mean, he's going on any and every platform, and it's great to see. It's great to see LL be able to roll this out the way that he wants to. But it's going to be interesting to see how people connect with it because, I mean, I don't know. Does his audience stream in that way, or would it be smarter for an artist like himself to do a vinyl rollout or sell things pre-sale or whatever? But I mean, are you guys buying music? Would you guys buy an LL Cool J vinyl? I know he was doing autographed CDs and stuff, but who actually has a CD player? But if that's how you can sell the record, I say fine. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to the album. I think it might be one of those front to back things because Q-Tip is an album making producer. That's why I was slightly disappointed by, this Murdergram record. When it leaked, I didn't even really listen to it like that because I knew it was coming. So I wanted to actually get the final. I wanted to get the best quality of it. I didn't want to critique something that might not be on the album or wasn't official. So really getting a chance to listen to it. My synopsis of it or my breakdown of it is the fact that LL Cool J is spitting on that. And I think that's one of his best mic performances that I've heard on, this album thus far from stuff that's been released. But I think the production is lackluster, and I think that Eminem's feature is lackluster on it as well. LL is going to be performing at the VMAs, which is this Sunday. Again, this is a part of a traditional type of rollout, doing television, doing mainstream radio, and I hope it translates. But let's also look at it in this way. We can't get caught up in the streaming numbers because if he does all these things and the streaming numbers aren't what, let's just say, Gunna or whoever would do, we shouldn't sit there and, castrate our legends in a sense. If it doesn't meet what people feel like is the mark. We don't even know what the real mark for streaming is. We don't even know what the real game or end game is for streaming. It's not really the same as record sales. It's hard to quantify. It's hard to quantify the support level, right? You can kind of quantify the support when people actually had to go into a store and purchase a person's record and support in that facet. But somebody could stream your shit and be a hater. Like somebody could stream your stuff just to critique it. Somebody could stream it and never listen to it again. Or you could have that situation where you have these automated streaming farms that are messing up the books or cooking the books. So it's very tough to quantify, but hopefully we'll see how some of these records live and see if some of these records can go on to be staples. I'm glad that we got, Common, LL, and I'm hearing that Nas is coming with the Primo joint. We know that well, they say the Snoop and Dr. Dre is coming. So I'm glad that we're having some of our legends being able to not only make new music, but also give it a real rollout and not just throw it out there, right? I think that what has happened with music right now, what we do in this content environment is we throw a lot of things out. There's a lot of quality control that needs to take place that people don't allow to take place anymore because they're trying to flood the market. We do it in the podcast game too. And I think that with what these guys have done and how they're rolling it out, you could tell there's a level of quality control going on. Even when they space it out and say, you know what, this album is coming out, because what they told us about a month and a half ago, the fourth was coming out on September 6th. It probably was already done, but they were thinking of ways to roll it out, get attention to it. Because the first thing, especially us OGs, man, when somebody drop an album or one of our legends drop an album, niggas be like, they didn't even know it came out. It's like, oh, when did he come out with an album? Or when did he do this? Or when's the last time such and such came out? Be like, man, it came out last year. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that. And I'm glad that they're actually making it a point to do the media and do the run, even do the runs, even though they might not come to some of those smaller media outlets, which I think is a mistake. I think there's a huge opportunity there. I think that's how you really go viral. But it is good to see that they do some media because currently, and I'm not casting stones on the current generation. They're doing things the way that they know how to do it, and they putting in the work. They out there performing at festivals and all that. But I do think the current generation doesn't do the type of media that they should. And it's not just the Gunners of the world or whatever. I'm talking about the J. Coles. I'm talking about the Kendricks. I'm talking about the Drakes of the world. I mean, they do the media when it benefits them. And I mean, like initially, but once they're coasting, and no more media, no more. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's unfortunate because I know that Kendrick has a lot of game to give in an interview. Like, imagine what a Kendrick Lamar interview sounds like in 2024. Imagine that. Imagine the type of experiences that he could speak to. Imagine him doing some sort of media run after he did Mr. Morale and reacting to some of the records. I remember, man, when interviews used to make you actually like the record even more, especially when somebody was coming from they said get in touch with LL then. Y'all think it's that easy? Well, shout out to LL. You know what? I'll attempt that. I'm going to listen to you guys' advice. I'll get in touch with LL and we'll see what we can do. You know what I'm saying? Got a couple other surprises up the sleeve, but we'll talk about that when it happens. I don't want to say too much and then things don't materialize. But yeah, I mean, imagine the type of game that Kendrick will be able to give in 2024 and speaking to some of those records, especially the real personal ones. Imagine him doing an interview, kind of speaking to the process of that, how he got to that, and how he got to the point of making certain records on Mr. Morale, or even some of the records he put out this year. Those things go a long way, and I get it, man. Like certain artists don't want to get caught up in a gotcha moment with a clout chasing, interviewer or whatever. But this is entertainment, man, and of course, you want to make sure that you protect your piece and you protect your product and you protect your image. But at the same time, man, this is hip hop, man. I mean, if Pac would have been that reserved and didn't do the interviews he did, imagine all the stuff we'd be missing. Same thing with 50, man. Like 50 got classic interviews. Rick Ross has classic interviews. And, we're just not getting that from the current generation. And I think the leaders in this current generation, they don't do it either. And to be honest, man, like the rest of the MCs that come up in the era of the Drakes and Coles and Kendricks, with them being the quote unquote three-headed monster, the big three for some people, they're like, what I got to do an interview for? You know what I'm saying? And so, that part of it kind of just goes away. So I'm good. It's good to see some of the OGs holding interviews and things like that to a high level of importance. But what I will say is, to the people who are interviewing the OGs, I think it's unfortunate. I'm sending links right now, guys. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thumbs up in the chat. We're about to get to it. I think it's unfortunate that a lot of our OG interviewers, or when they're interviewing legends, they don't talk about the music, man. A lot of the times it ends up being about gossip. It ends up being about other people, about other artists. And I'm sure that LL might have found it disheartening that a lot of the media that he's doing, a lot of press that he's doing, isn't really focused on just the music and just the album. One of the things that he said on the Charlemagne interview, which I thought was a very good interview, Charlemagne did a really good job in his LL interview, was when Charlemagne kept harping on, older music, LL was all about the new music and he was all about the new creations. And I can only imagine, just as a creator, if you made something, you were like, man, shit, in LL's case, 17, 18 years old, and you're in your 50s, going on 60s or whatever, and you still want to create, and people are still talking to you about stuff that you made when you were a teenager. It's like, nah, man, let me grow and let me speak on music. And I think that LL sometimes, and this is a legacy conversation for him, I think that he gets hit with the mainstream, ladies love Cool James type of image, and doesn't get credited for the artist and the creator that he is in this culture. I mean, he's the guy who ushered in the whole 16 bar, eight verse, 8 bar hook, 16 bar verse, 8 bar hook format. And he should get credit for that. You know what I'm saying? Like before LL and Rick Rubin hit the scene in that way, rappers were just rapping as long as they could. And it wasn't really a song structure, song format, on a mainstream level. And they created that. Even if we talk about a rap love song being a success, I mean, I'm sure there were rap love songs before LL made I Need Love, but none as big. And he actually showed the world in the industry that could work, and there was a need for that. And I think even, it's still a top all-time hip-hop love song. It is. Hold on 1 second. It is. And those are things that we got to factor in when we talk about legacy. LL's longevity is, top 5, right? And I only say that because in recent year, people have been, what I'm saying, going the distance and going 30 years plus or whatever. But no one did it to that length before LL did it. His longevity is top notch. His ability to adjust with the times is top notch. His stardom is top notch. Him just being on the ground floor as, in my opinion, hip hop's first superstar, that's something that you can't go out there and duplicate. So when we're talking all time, when we're talking top tens and all of that, yeah, there are some MCs that you might like more than LL as far as like on the mic, wordplay, storytelling, making complete albums from beginning to end. But when we line up people's resumes, yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. Yeah, I want to acknowledge that too. Houdini, Run DMC, Curtis Blow, UTFO. They all did love songs before I Need Love, but none of them were as big as I Need Love. It's not. LL's done it all. And even if we're talking about the transition to acting, I think only him and Queen Latifah, and we'll give it to Will as well, held down a sitcom. And LL was holding down a sitcom while still having a rap career and not really taking a hiatus on that end. LL's done a lot. And yes, there may be some MCs that you like better bar for bar or might listen to more, or what I'm saying, are better album makers for beginning to end. But it's very, very, very hard to say that there are 10 MCs that should be ranked all time over LL Cool J. I think he's the first soloist that should have been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I actually think he should have gotten in right after Run DMC. I think they skipped over him a few times. But again, I think that's because of who he caters to, and he doesn't. And he said this in the Charlemagne interview, and I'm paraphrasing this. He doesn't make a fight the power, He makes records for the women, and he makes records for the streets and the clubs and things like that. And when you're considered to be a pop artist, some of these people who are on these panels, these rock and roll panels or artsy fartsy panels, they don't consider you. It took them a long time to put Janet Jackson in there, which is crazy because they looked at Janet as a pop artist. Janet made the Velvet Rope, So, but that's a whole nother tangent I could go on. So yeah, I want to give props to LL Cool J, and I think that this album being what I know it's about to be, it just adds to the legacy. And Ghostface is one of my favorite rappers, one of my 3 favorite rappers. But it'd be very difficult for me to sit here and say Ghostface should be ranked over LL Cool J on an all-time list. I think the conversation to me, and I still might go LL here, LL and KRS. I thought that's what the verses should have been, honestly. And no disrespect to Kane, I just think that KRS just has such a long catalog and, such a great live performer. Both of them are. I think they're the best 2 live performers that hip hop's ever seen. But I think that KRS's catalog just, is a lot longer than Kane's. And I think Kane and Rakim might have been the matchup we needed to see. But I would have loved to have seen KRS and LL because these are 2 contrasting things, right? We got 2 very long careers from guys who were rocking heavy in the 80s and were able to transition to the 90s. Y'all say LL and Cube? I could see that. But my problem with the LL and Cube thing, it could work. Cube singles are just different. I think that Cube's album cuts are incredible, and Cube's one of my favorites too. Incredible storyteller. I think Cube's top 10. But I think that LL's bangers would just kind of dwarf Cube's bangers, while Cube's album songs would definitely do the same thing to LL's album songs. I just think that KRS and LL would be a better matchup because even though KRS has the underground shit, it's shit's bangers, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think their approach is similar. Well, let me say it like this. I think their output and the sonics can kind of come across as similar and live on the same stage, but their approaches were totally different. And I think that would have been an interesting contrast for guys who were rocking at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And because most of LL stuff in a verses would come from the 80s to, let's just say, maybe the mid, possibly late 90s. And I would say the same thing for KRS. And I think that would have been a very, very interesting versus. Moss Ever, the super chat says, Cube would have Cube would have had to match up with Scarface, bro. Cube and Scarface would have been an incredible versus. That would have been a love fest of just incredible songs. It would have been like that Ghostface and Raekwon. Me and Siobhan gonna do this Jay-Z and Nas versus, and y'all said that we should have some rules in play. One of the rules that we put in play, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, so we're gonna do no features. And I'm with that. And I think we should do no features overall. I think we should just do all solo dolo songs. Is that fair? Is that fair? Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says LL created the term GOAT. Now it's everywhere. He did. I remember when he did it, man. We were kind of laughing at it because we had never heard nothing like that before. And we were young. We were still on our Pac, Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas shit. Like, man, ain't no way LL better than these guys. But you live and you learn. And yes, LL stated that claim. And at the time, and even today, he's well within his rights to say that he's the greatest of all time. When the GOAT album came out in 2000, if we're gonna look resume to resume, hit for hit, longevity and all, LL probably is still the greatest rapper. I mean, it's a huge case. The only people that I'll say this: Pac's impact and all that stuff is what it is. But at the time, he didn't have the tenure that LL had, and LL still had all these hits under his belt. Not to say that Pac's legacy didn't grow, because it did. But we're sitting here thinking like, okay, well, you got Me Against the World, All Eyes on Me, and Machiavelli. Essentially, obviously you got Strictly for My Niggas and Tupacalypse Now. But at the time, man, LL had a catalog of work. And the time spans that LL was able to skip through, nobody else had really been able to successfully do. Well, now you got Nas doing what he did, 30 years in. But back in 2000, yeah, LL could have stated the claim as the GOAT, and it really shouldn't have been too much of a conversation. Rakim, KRS, I would say Kane from a skill set standpoint, but Kane didn't have the longevity or the records that LL did, but who did at the time? Rakim didn't either. And Rakim's my guy. I think Rakim's the greatest lyricist ever. I think the only person in 2000 that could really sit here and fight that claim was KRS, but KRS didn't have the mainstream success that somebody like a LL did. So that was the caveat there. But anyway, LL Cool J is such an interesting fixture because he's always going to be underrated, because we don't really know where to properly rate him. And I keep saying top 10 because I don't really know where to properly rate LL. He's a one of one. We're never going to see anything like him again because he was here from the ground floor. And the fact that he's able to give us an album in 2024 that's highly anticipated is extremely impressive. And I think it's disrespectful when people put guys who haven't done a third of his career ahead of him on an all-time list. So let's not all get caught up in lyrical miracle. And I think this new record with Eminem is proof of that, because let's be honest, LL out-rapped Eminem on this record, and nobody's talking about it, because if it was the other way around, we'd be talking about it. Anyway, on to T.I. I had to take a drink here. I'm looking forward to this fourth album, man. It's just gonna be fire. I'm looking forward to it. On the T.I. though. Ooh, you said Cube's catalog over Pac's, respectfully. That's Leroy. Listen, man, we already know Leroy's not a big Pac fan like that. But Cube is interesting because Cube is the author of Straight Outta Compton. Cube does have West Side Connection in his back pocket too. Cube made Death Certificate, Kill at Will, The Predator, America's Most. Cube made one of the greatest hip hop songs of all time in A Good Day. Cube was able to switch it up when Players Club and all that stuff came around. And I think that would be an interesting versus. Let me say it like that. I think that Tupac was able to do some things that Cube wasn't able to do, but I think Cube did some things that Pac wasn't able to do either. So I think that's interesting. I'll put it this way, man. I'm confident in the fact that I know both of their catalogs very well. I'm confident that even if I took Cube's side, I could make it really interesting. But I would need the NWA stuff, and I would need West Side Connection stuff. Yeah, I would need that. But Pac, I might not need that. So yeah, featured work I probably need and to make it really, really interesting. But when we talk about a solo dolo dude, man, Pac's tough to beat, straight up. But anyway, on to Ti. In my opinion, Ti is the greatest solo artist to come out of the city of Atlanta. Just is what it is. And if we talk about longevity, changing the game, changing the landscape, out rapping everybody, 'cause that's the thing too. And this is something that I think Ti doesn't get a lot of credit for, even to this day. Ti raps his ass off, even if you're not paying attention. And I'm trying to sit here and think, when did Ti ever give somebody a weak verse? When did he ever give somebody a lackluster feature? His feature game is underrated. Like his feature game is understated. Like y'all saying the Ti age like spoiled milk. Okay. Where does this narrative come from? Is that true to you guys? Like, so you guys listen to Ti's music now and say, you know what, man, that's whack. Why? I don't know. Anyway, I think some of the stuff from a production standpoint, yeah, it was good for the time. Are y'all saying this from a production standpoint, or y'all talking about him as an MC? Because I want to know. Is this more of a production thing? Because his main producer, yeah, yeah, there we go, OG Weston. What tracks do you guys think actually aged badly? Let's break this down. 24s. Okay. Huh. I'm in a drop top Chevy with the roof wide open. Partner's looking. I will say this, and I've said this on the show before, and Luda's not better than him. I'm sorry. We can have that conversation until the cows come home. He's not. I'll say this, man. I do think that Ti wasn't the best beat picker. That's why a lot of the times his features, yo, Shabazz.
Yo,
We got DJ Bruce Almighty in the building. He said Tip's last album was fire. Y'all are tripping. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, man. He's been making fire for a long time, and people stop paying attention. What's good with you, Siobhan? How you doing?
yeah, what's good?
Oh man, nothing much, man. Just sitting here talking some hip hop real quick, man. We talking about I just got on the whole Ti topic. And one of the reasons why I put him number one in the city as a solo artist, because I had Cass as number one. I just think he's the best solo rapper to ever come out of the city of Atlanta. He's proved it time and time again. And then the conversation switched over to people saying that his catalog is aged like milk. And I want to get to the bottom of where this narrative comes from. Matt Max with the super chat says, nobody playing Tip no more, Mike. He had his time passed. What do you think about that? You in Florida.
So I'm starting to see this becoming a thing of this generation right now, of this moment, this era of people saying certain things age bad. And I will revert back to our conversation about Jay and Nas when I say there's some records that age bad between the both. You know what I'm saying? As much as of a Jay fan I am, I was to admit that there's some things of Jay that age bad just as well as Nas. We got to stop being prisoners of the moment. And like I said, we only do this in hip hop. I mean, when we say age bad, it's 2024. Of course, I'm not listening to records with my 2024 ears. Those records was made in that time frame, and we respect in that time frame. We don't do that with R&B music, where we say, "Oh man, that Carl Thomas aged bad. Oh, that Usher aged bad." No, they're performing their hits all the way to this day, and it's loved, it's respected. So if we consider those classics of that time, how are they aging bad in 2024? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, there's records that are being sampled for a reason. There are people that are being mentioned for a reason. So if you're saying an individual like T.I. has aged bad, well, I want to know in what aspect are you speaking about it in, because he solidified for a reason. We can't go and rewrite history just because it's 2024 and nobody's listening to that music now, and there's new artists above. I mean, we can't do that. So I just want to know, like, what is it that aged bad? Are you speaking of? Because I could name songs that are great, albums that are great to this day, listening current day.
Well, somebody said 24s. That was one of their examples. Let me get to the super chat real quick. Critical Mass says T.I. is arguably the best rapper from Atlanta. I remember the first time I heard What You Know. It sounded like something out of this world. T.I. is that dude. I remember when I heard What You Know too for the first time. And that shit's great. That's one of the best rap songs to ever come out of the city of Atlanta, period. Mall 7 with the super chat said a few years ago, T.I. went on Ebro's show and said that he's NY biased because he said he had 5 classic albums, and Ebro disagreed by saying that he only has 3. I think he's got 4. Well, you know what? There is a thing there where, this goes back to the Source magazine in the 90s, right? Source magazine gave Project Pack Getty Green 2.5 mics. Now, in the South, there's no way in hell anybody's going to tell you that Getty Green is a 2.5 mic album. So there is a differential when you have a New York-based publication rating a Southern album. That's just the reality. If the Source magazine was in tune with the South at that time and was located in the South, there's no way in the world they would have given Getty Green 2.5 mics. That's just God honest truth. I don't know what they gave Mr. Don't Play. Mr. Don't Play probably got like 3.5 mics in the Source or something. In the South, that's a 5 mic album. So yes, I agree with T.I. There is a differential there. I think Outkast, and I say this respectfully, was able to get rated properly because they had a palatable style to New York hip hop, specifically Dre. I think that's why Dre gets highlighted so much in that package, because Dre's style translates to New Yorkers better than Big Boy's does. It just is what it is. And I think that also when we talk about Akumenai getting 5 mics, Southern Playlist got 4.5. They feel like they got snubbed. Boom, boom, whatever. And I do think Southern Playalistic does have a case for being a 5 mic album. I think the real trick here is when Akumenai was rated in the same issue as Volume 2. Now, the Source had a decision to make here. Volume 1 got 4 mics. So they weren't going to give Volume 2 4 mics as well, because Volume 2 is supposed to be the elevation of Jay. So they got 4.5. They could have given Akumenai 4.5 as well. But Akumenai is clearly a better album than Volume 2. They couldn't have given those 2 albums the same rating.
See, and here's the thing, man. Southern hip hop is constantly disrespected. And I want to say it's interesting to me because even back then in the Outkast and the Goody Mob days where these guys should be getting that respect, and it became a time where the South took over so much where other regions kind of had to bend to the style of the South. But let's be real, those hip hop publications were not being fair in the beginning. We've heard stories now from the Source of saying how there were things that were like conflict of interest going on at a certain latter part of that Source period where certain people were giving mics to certain individuals. I mean, I think Benzino even did it with somebody else associated with him when it comes to the mic system. And that created a lot of, controversy in that. I interviewed Dave Mays one-on-one, and we talked about that early stuff in the mic system and how that went about.
What did Dave Mays have to say about that when you spoke to him?
Because it's all right. So it was a lot of, of course, everything comes with a lot of politics, and there was a lot of politics with that back then as well. Sometimes he didn't say this verbatim, but we could see that if they wanted a certain artist to be their cover artist for that, yeah, they're gonna give them more mics because, man, it would be great if we could have a Jay interview. Man, it would be great if we have a so-and-so interview, just for bigger names, It's
like award shows, right? If you want somebody to come and perform at your award show, I gotta win my award, man. You're not gonna have me go out here and perform and get you ratings and have, you know what I'm saying? And now I'm sitting in the audience not getting an award. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's very political. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And then on top of that, like I said, I try not to be a prisoner of the moment. I don't want to be stuck into, and this is what a lot of OGs got it with the generation of rappers that came here, where there's a lot of OGs that was in hip hop that look down on the younger generation because they say they like this and like that, and not understanding like hip hop always moved in waves, man, and one furthers the next that go further than what they are. I think the issue with music now is we dug ourselves into a hole where there wasn't a new wave created. We got stuck in its laps and it stayed there, and everybody is trying to recreate that lightning in the pan, you know, that flash in the pot. And that's why I feel like music is lacking now, creative wise. Now, I like the fact that we have OGs coming back to making music. MC Light's working on an album. LL's doing an album. Hell, LL is one of my favorite hip hop artists of anything. We don't care about top 5 or whatever. He's the reason why we mentioned GOAT. He's the reason why I got a mic tattooed on my arm. You know, I'm black.
Honestly, I didn't know all that. I would have had you on for the LL segment. I just got finished talking about
Mike, like LL single-handedly took hip hop to a new wave, man. Like there are certain artists that come in and they push the envelope to the next one. And I feel like
he don't get a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, what's lacking right now, man, is just it hasn't been a new wave created. We went into drill music and stayed stuck on drill for years. You know, we kind of got stuck in these new waves not being created, the creativity not being there, and because of that, being stuck in a hole. Then when we see who's the most interactive people on the internet, we start shitting on our legends. We start shitting on their catalogs and their music, and when we say things don't age well, there's a reason why things were aged the way they're supposed to be. I'm pretty sure when these artists were making their records, they wasn't saying, oh man, I know kids in 2024 is gonna love this. Yeah, they want their music to live forever, but it's kind of a thing. We are making music for it. It's a document of the times and stuff like that there, you know?
I got something to say about that. Let me get to the super chats real quick. DJ Bruce Almighty says, low key, I like T.I. over Wayne. Better catalog, in my opinion. I mean, you know what? I respect Wayne's catalog and his longevity and all those things, but I agree with that, honestly. Mad Max to the super chat says, T.I. don't have one real classic. See, that's not true. And see, all right, I'm going to get to you, Mad Max. Outkast, Mad Max also says, Outkast had a style that translated to the whole country. They were audible. They were audible. That's not just the NY thing. Southern hip hop is not a constant and not constantly disrespected. Let's be for real. And the Mad Max is from New York. I will say this about Outkast and them translating over to the mainstream. I don't think that really happened until Stankonia. I think that they had a couple of songs here and there that translated to the mainstream on a few albums, but Southern Playalistic is very Southern. There's no mainstream stuff on there, really. You got songs like Players Ball and the song Southern Playalistic that got radio play because they had R&B hooks on them. And they were on an R&B label. I mean, when I interviewed Gip, he brought up something that made sense. He was like, we were on an R&B label, so we had to make songs that were palatable to an R&B listener. You know what I'm saying? And because we couldn't go out there and make, you know, just for example, what Redman was making. Where you're just making some rap shit. You got to turn this into L.A. Reid. So you got to have some R&B twist on it. So anyway, going from there, ATLiens, I don't think ATLiens had no mainstream crossover record like that. The biggest song on ATLiens was probably either the song ATLiens or Elevators, and those aren't crossover hits like that. Aquemini, at the time, I know Spodioti is the one that lasted the longest, but Spodioti wasn't no crossover hit back then. The closest they had to a crossover hit back then on that record was Rosa Parks, and I don't even think that's a crossover hit. So this crossover Outkast stuff didn't happen to Stankonia. That didn't happen to Miss Jackson, really. If we're being completely honest about it, they were just very good at what they were doing, and I do think that the fact that stylistically Dre was able to translate to like a New York type of style of doing things, even though he had a Southern draw, his flow was very New York palatable. And I think that's why they connected in ways that Goody Mob might not have to New York or even the West Coast. Because it wasn't just us that was treated unfairly by the source. You talk about the Chronic getting like, what was that, 4.5. Doggy Style got 4 mics. That's insane. The only West Coast album that got 5 mics was Cube's America's Most, and that was recorded in New York by the Bomb Squad. That's why that happened.
There's politics in it all, man. And like I'm saying, man, like I can't say somebody's stuff aged well that was a pioneer and what they did, because that's the fact. That like for example, when you spoke of LL earlier, that's like my generation say, man, LL's music aged bad. He was a pioneer. He's not going to be rapping in that same,
Right.
tone as back then. We're not going to be hearing the no.
Yeah, you're right. I Need a Beat sounds like the 80s.
Like, no, that was a time. They're pioneers. We can't say that, bro. Like, of course, the production is furthered, the technology is furthered, the sound has furthered, the rhyme schemes, is ways of that, man. There's stuff that content-wise, it didn't age well because of the new environment that we're in, where certain things can't be said because it's offensive, or certain things is considered going too far. So yes, content-wise, things can age well, but a lot of music, you know what I'm saying, existed in a time frame it was for a reason to push it further, man.
I say something that's very unpopular about my favorite artist, Michael Jackson, right? And I'm not saying Bad's not a great album. I'm looking at Michael Jackson's standards. I'm looking at Off the Wall. I'm looking at Thriller, and even Moments on Dangerous. I don't think from a production standpoint, a lot of songs on Bad aged well. Like, I think that the song Bad from a production standpoint is nowhere near Billy. I mean, not even just a production standpoint, songwriting, anything. Like, those two songs are nowhere near each other. You know what I'm saying? Like Speed Demon. I don't really like Speed Demon like that. We could say that a lot of stuff on Bad didn't quote unquote age well, right? But that doesn't take away from the talent that made that record as well. You still got moments like Liberian Girl. So even if you want to say 24s didn't age that well what do you think about I'm Just Doing My Job? What do you think about Be Easy and stuff like that? Like, he still got records on there. And if we're sitting here criticizing the production, which is fine, what about the rapper on this shit? Because you can't point at no record and say that Tip gave you a weak verse. You can't point to no Tip bar and say he said some shit like, let me be frank like Sinatra or some shit like that. No.
T.I. does have classic verses. People forget his verse on Stump because it wasn't adding to the Young Buck album. He had a classic.
That verse is better than Ludacris's verses. I don't care. Like, the Stump verse is crazy.
A lot of people forget that the Never Scared record with Bone Crusher, his verse on that.
Stand out.
He was on Destiny Child Soldier, even though Wayne kind of had the better verse on that. I mean, be honest.
Think so?
Yeah, I
think both of them toned it down. It's tough to...
But Ludacris, I feel like with Luda, he's a perfect example of people saying music aged bad because it was very animated and such, like a Busta Rhymes or whatnot. And it was kind of that fun type music around that style. He had the album quality was great. He had great albums, but if you go back and listen to it with these days ears, we could say Ludacris music is one of those people that it didn't. But people that's going to sell out a show say different.
I think there's two things that make stuff age quote unquote badly. Well, it's three things. Production's one of those things. Not having in-depth lyrical content or lyrical ability sometimes will do that to you as well. And also making songs for the time. Now, granted, Ludacris knocked it out the box. He came in this thing, if we're being real about it, Ludacris is from his run's probably like 2000 to 2003. Very, very short run, very big impact, extremely successful in those pockets of years. But when you're that successful in a small pocket of time like that, you have to make songs for the time. And you also have to factor in the fact that he was a radio guy. He knows what the radio's playing. He knows what's coming. He knows what people want to hear. And as an artist, he's able to translate that on record. Now, the catch-22 of that is you're going to be very successful in that time period, but are people going to be playing that 20 years from now when radio moves on to something else? That's based on how timeless your time period is. Because the early 2000s, in my opinion, I don't really think that was a timeless time period that rivals, like, let's just say like the mid 90s. I don't think there's a touch me, tease me in the 2000s like that. I think that, Mary J. Blige's was that her version of In the Club. What's the name of that song? You know what I'm talking about. Let's get it, like,
oh yeah.
those records. Now you want to talk about not aging well? They were extremely successful in their time. But ain't nobody gonna play that over Real Love or nothing like that. Those are different quality levels of time pockets, and I think that Luda was very successful at a radio period that wasn't that strong of a radio period, quality wise.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like certain artists, they all bring something new to the game. The ones that are the pioneers, the ones that had those moments, they brought things to the game. And like it or not, I would even say Ludacris has a hell of a career, not just outside of music. He has a hell of a career, from transitioning from music to movies to what he does in business, or how he has his daughter in a cartoon on Netflix. Like, he has a great career.
I think he has one of the best careers ever.
Yeah, hands down. Yeah, like there's certain ones that got it. Like Snoop is one of those people. I would love to have a Snoop career that extends outside of music, man.
But see, Snoop had to go through it. I don't think Luda's ever gone through a period where it's like Luda was like down bad. Like Snoop even had the No Limit years. He had the murder trial and all. He went through his trials in front of everybody. Luda ain't got that.
But you don't have to go through, know, those down parts for you to have a good album. I mean, a good album. Sorry, a good career. Look at LL's career is kind of clean itself, and he has a great career that some of this generation, they don't even know LL was a rapper. They associated him with just doing movies and television and stuff, which is
like that too.
Yeah, same with Cube. So it's crazy. So there are certain people that they just have it, man, and they figured it out. But as far as just the music, man, when I think about things that age well, I think and age bad, I'm always relating it to the content, not the beat, not the, there's certain producers that gave you those timeless beats that if it came from back then, you hear it today, it's amazing still. And some of them, it brings you back that nostalgic feel when you hear it, but I think
T.I. could have been a better beat picker. I mean, I think if T.I.
it's easy to say that now today's ears, but back then, when you listen to Urban Legend, when you listen to King, when you listen to trap music, and even like people don't really consider this album to be in one of his greatest things, but regionally and down here, I'm Serious was one of those things where people listen to it, they'd be like, man, this age bad because beat wise. But
I never liked
I'm Serious. I'm Serious is like a cult classic.
It was
in the beginning of T.I. So it's like
was.
If we say stuff like his stuff age bad, and you hear it, bring it out at every sporting event and commercials and stuff like that, classics are classics for a reason, and we can't start with this this rewriting history stuff because it's something that you love to hate right now. It's like the Jay-Z hate train. I'm a Jay-Z fan. I'm not a fan, but I see there's an agenda being pushed with a Jay-Z hate fan with other little blogs. I seen one recently that quoted a 50 Cent quote, and a 50 Cent saying or a quote he made, and I don't even know if it's really from him. I don't know what's real now. And he talked about Jay's appeal and stuff like that and music or whatever. Like, trash is trash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't matter what time period it is. Trash is trash, right? But when we start taking people that were considered to be goats or greats in their time, and now all of a sudden, their stuff aged bad or this stuff is trash, you don't have classics, blah, blah, blah. We can't go back and rewrite history that's already there, man. You can have your own personal opinion. You can feel how you feel, but that's not what we're about to do, bro. Like, because when I listen to Tip and I hear I still ain't forgave myself, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's I'm Serious. When there's records on there that I still love and listen to today.
I got an I'm Serious story. Go
ahead, give me that one.
And Max in the super chat says the Southerners today play Monopoly with hip hop today. If it ain't trap, you down it, whether it's drill, boom bap, West Coast funk, etc. You become the new New York, and you're gonna get some treatment New York gets now. Oh, New York is bitter. Don't be like that, Mad Max. We love New York. New York shaped us, and New York
Yeah, we know where the
birthplace
Mecca
of hip
is,
hop. We
man.
love
But
New York.
we
Mad
can't.
Max also said, and T.I. was making whack joints, blurred lines, and you can have whatever you like. And let's be for real, Luda has more songs people know today than T.I. in general. I think that T.I.'s verse on Blurred Lines is pretty good. I think
Yeah,
his verse
yeah.
on My Love was pretty dope too.
Yes.
Now, I'm serious.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
I went to high school with T.I.'s god sister, so I got a snippet of I'm Serious when I was in high school. And it was from Shauna's mom. Shout out to them. And DJ Mars, shout out to him as well. He was hosting it. And the first song was, I want to say it was either Dope Boys in the Trap or Still Ain't Forgave Myself. I think he started off with a Still Ain't Forgave Myself and then Dope Boys in the Trap. Anyway, I remember liking Dope Boys in the Trap, and I remember this is back in the day when they would put like snippets on the CD. That's what Arista was doing at the time. And the only full song on there was the single, I'm Serious. And so I remember getting the album, and I didn't like the album production wise, and I thought he, could rap. I thought he had talent, but I really loved how he changed up his style on trap music. I think he was trying to do, well, just like everybody else does, trying to do what was hot at the time and trying to come with a hit. And he had the Neptunes and Beanie Man on there.
Yeah.
But I think he did get lucky, and I don't want to say lucky, that sounds bad. I think he was fortunate enough to have a record like Dope Boys in the Trap on there that has some legs on it, and stuff like I Still Ain't Forgave Myself that would connect with people in ways that, some of the other guys that were on the radio at the time didn't. But I always feel like I'm Serious. Like you said, it is a cult classic. The locals love it. I want to know what he feels about the album, because he doesn't perform anything from that album. And I think the fact that he was able to recover from an album like that, it's a testament to how great he is as an artist too. Because I don't want to say it's easy to come out with a debut that blows people away, but most of the time that's what happens. And when you have talent and then you kind of, put out your debut and it's underwhelming, a lot of people don't recover from that. And the fact that he was able to recover from that and then keep going, it says a lot about who he is. It reminds me of, what Common was able to do from Can I Borrow a Dollar to Resurrection, or what Mobb Deep was able to do from Juvenile Hell to The Infamous, or the Fugees with Blunted on Reality and The Score. Like, they actually found who they were as artists and ran with it. And T.I. did that from I'm Serious to trap music. But the difference with I'm Serious is, you're right, people love that album anyway, even though that's kind of a local sensation. And I think he took all the things that were working on there and amplified.
The thing about I'm Serious, it seemed like there was a lot of labels stepping into it, because then it was a big thing. You have to have a radio single, you have to go mainstream. It's not like today when some of these rappers are big and they're doing festivals or whatever, and they don't have a song on radio. It wasn't like that back then. You needed a song for radio, you needed a hot music video, you needed that. And I feel like the label kind of meddled in I'm Serious a little bit more, because there was a lot of producers and different sounds they played with on I'm Serious. And I feel like that wasn't the summary of what Tip's career is. Obviously, he grew to way bigger heights from I'm Serious.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he wanted to make.
Yeah, that's not what he panned out, but as far as the content and what he was talking about early on with that, it made me look forward to, hey, if he gets a chance to come back out and redeem himself to the mainstream, what are we looking for to hear from him? Because back then, if you get something that gets shelved or you get something that flop, we don't know if we're gonna see you for another album.
Exactly. He took it to the streets, man. And that says a lot about him and his belief in himself and his skill set. Because like you said, a lot of people would have just packed it up and said, well, this ain't working out. Or, the label messed me over, whatever. Mm-hmm. But he took his opportunity on, I'm serious. He took his opportunity on Never Scared and stood out, and then had an album and mixtapes to follow it, and was rapping
Did
at
you
a
have the
time when
sample
niggas
joint?
weren't really rapping like that down here. And we're not counting Outkast and all those guys because they were kind of somewhere else with it at that time. Outkast was in space at that time. You know what I mean? As
Did you
far as
have
like from a grassroots level in the city of Atlanta, nobody was rapping to the level that T.I. was rapping. And he got to get credit for that, man.
see? I knew T.I. could spit because I had the little sampler joint that did have "I'm Serious" as a single, but it had "Jacking for Beats."
Yep.
And when I heard that, I was like, all right, yeah, man, T.I. is gonna be something soon, you know. And I was a kid, bro. I was going to Come Together Day in Jacksonville, whatever. And the street, that's back when they had the street teams for real. They're passing stuff out.
Yeah.
And I got that sampler joint and it had Jacking for Beats on it. I was like, yeah.
And they're wrapping up cars and stuff.
Yeah, man. So, you know,
I will say this though, to his production choices. I remember when I heard that he passed up on Rick Ross's Hustlin' beat. And you know, again, I wasn't surprised because I don't feel like T.I. always picks the best beats. He's not a bad beat picker, but a lot of the times he's better than the beat itself. That's no disrespect to Toomp. I do think him and Toomp are the best collaborators, or Toomp is the best collaborator, if you say that. I think Jazzy Faye might actually be a quiet number 2.
Manny Fresh gave us some too.
I remember, you remember the Crown Me song? Yeah. Now, when I heard him on some Dipset shit, I was like, see, now this is what I want to hear him on. And I would love to executive produce a T.I. project. Man.
I mean, one of my favorite T.I. albums is between Urban Legend and Paper Trail. I think Paper Trail was that album that was sort of reflective, in his way, introspective, with what was going on at the time. And I feel like Urban Legend is when he hit that ground running, and he said he was the king of the South, and people forget that him and Lil Flip and him and like just the things he was doing at the time, T.I. was big. So it's easy to look at Tip in different eyes now when, you know, we could remember, and we actually have to look back at what his reign was. And there was a reason why nobody really debated that King of the South stuff when it came to him, because he was really holding it down. And Tip holding it down was a little bit like during that midst of Wayne kind of rising up in the ranks too. So
well, you know what, you're right.
But to me,
Wayne was around because, you know, Wayne the Hot Boy, we're gonna talk about the Hot Boy reunion and all that stuff in the Carter 6. But Wayne was, you know, one of the Hot Boys, and you know, Wayne had The Block Is Hot that dropped in 99. He had what was it, 500 Degrees, and I feel like it was another project. So anyway, T.I. kind of took off before Wayne turned into the Carter Wayne.
My point.
Yeah. So it's like, you're right. It was all kind of happening at the same time. I remember Wayne telling the story that, you know, that's how he got connected with DJ Drama, because he was on the phone with T.I. and T.I. hooked him up because, you know, T.I. was doing the Drama mixtapes first. Shit. That's where I heard Drama from. I don't think T.I. gets enough credit for that either. Like, that Down with the King mixtape was a monster. That's actually my personal favorite T.I. project. Like
those big heads coming out of Atlanta, I feel like they held down the South great amongst the whole world. You know, I would say like you had T.I., you had Jeezy, you had Wayne, you had Gucci, you know, because Gucci, there's a lot of people that love Gucci. Gucci's not my favorites, but I rock with Gucci. I didn't listen to Gucci early on as much as other people, but he had a hell of a mixtape run. He has a hell of an impact with a lot of these new artists, and we have to put him in there as well. There's a lot of artists that coming out the South in that time, they represented the South well, and we can't act like it didn't exist. We can't erase what that is. There's a trap museum for a reason that documents a lot of that. There's a lot of moments in hip hop as well, and I feel like that's a time period that has to be respected, man. We can't disrespect it just because you don't like it, bro. Like that South reign, that Southern reign is there and it's solidified. And if your favorite rapper from whatever region you was the man back then they would have shed more light over those people, wouldn't they? So we, because other rappers were making records from those NY regions, stuff like that, besides Dipset and besides 50 holding it down. Most of the South had to adapt. I mean, most of New York had to adapt to the South.
Yeah, that was happening.
I mean, not Jay, but Jadakiss had to go put OJ the Juice Man on his album. And I love Kiss, but there was a reason. Mims, he had to go get him.
I blame New York radio for that. I think New York radio stopped supporting their New York artists in the way that they once were, and they start putting so much Southern stuff on the radio that it forced a lot of New York MCs to have to adapt or even change their style or do something that was outside of their character. So, OG Weston with the super chat says, "Tip ended flip." Yes, he did, unfortunately. What I was gonna say though, this is my thing about the Trap Music Museum. And I had a friend that went there and checked it out because I never seen it myself. And they told me that Cool Breeze wasn't in there. Now, let me rewind. This is how I feel about T.I. and trap music. I feel like T.I. named an album Trap Music, but what we know of trap music today, I don't feel like he's the creator of. And let me explain that. I feel like rappers from the South, West, East Coast, whatever, was rapping about selling drugs well before trap music. So we got to differentiate. Is trap music a subject or is it a sound? Is it a sonic or is it a content thing? Because if it's a content thing, what makes Riding Dirty by UGK not a trap album? Or what makes Ready to Die, Reasonable Doubt, or Only Built for Cuban Links not a trap album, right? And if we're talking sonics, I don't think the trap music, the album, does that. I think the sonics that Shawty Red, Jeezy and Gucci and those guys put forth, that is the building blocks of trap music as a subgenre, if you will, because they call Travis Scott stuff trap music. And that ain't rapping, you know what I'm saying? Like, subject matter wise, he's not talking about selling drugs and nothing like that. It's more of a sonics thing. And I think that, yeah, T.I. might have given a name to, and I will give T.I. this. He laid the foundation for Jeezy and Gucci to ride on, right? And Zaytoven too, DJ Holiday, of course, shout out to them. But I think those are the ones that were the founders or the creators of what we know as trap music. And I think that when T.I. went to do the Trap Music Museum, I think that was him kind of, I don't want to say rewriting history, but making sure he told the history in the way that he wanted it to be told. But leaving Cool Breeze out of it is kind of weird to me because I feel like trap music as an album, the blueprint of that is Cool Breeze, East Point's greatest hit. I never heard the word trap in a song before, Dungeon Family or Goody Mob's thought process. And I think that when we talk about a solo artist from Atlanta talking that talk and talking like that, I never heard anybody into Cool Breeze do that. And it's always funny to me when I listen to Top Back and he says, bumping Goody Mob Soul Food #4. I'm like, yeah, man, that's Cool Breeze on Dirty South. Clearly you was listening to Cool Breeze. Clearly Cool Breeze is an influence. Why ain't Cool Breeze getting those props, man? Like, I don't know.
When I think about trap, now I guess it's you can't ignore the fact that it is a genre. There's people that are intentionally trying to make what trap inspired, I guess, beats or whatever to rap over and everything. But to me, I felt like trap at the time when it was a T.I., Jeezy, Gucci, all that, it was more so a culture, man. It was the way they dressed, the way they talk, the music that translated what was going on in the streets. I feel like trap was more so of a culture, and it's been watered down in these execs and music has made it to where they kind of try to commercialize it to the point that trap is now like a main genre where you just have these rappers that are, doing what they do in their best imitation of what the idea of what these label heads figure, oh, this is trap music. This is what it is. No, trap is a genre to me. And you could listen to, artists of that time talk about the culture around it, man. The way people were dressing, those are the white tea days. Those were the, what I'm saying? There was a lot of culture behind that. There was a reason why people flocked to Atlanta, and it's been there, I think trap is, it's a cool period in music, but I think it's more so of a culture, no different from any other culture, subculture in hip hop that arise.
Yeah.
I think people
What up?
the elements of hip hop, and we discredit the edits, the elements of hip hop when it comes to certain regions, but all of them contribute in a way, and these subcultures are important, and we can't forget that.
Mad Max in the super chat says, trap music is about piano sounds. T.I. ain't do that. Now, I will agree on this one thing with, gosh, man, who keep blowing me up? Sorry about that, guys. I will agree with Mad Max on this. I don't think sonically T.I., like if we did a trap mix, right, and we were just a DJ, you're a DJ. If you were doing a mix of trap songs, and you know what I'm saying, and let's just say Jeezy, Gucci, in that time period is kind of like the template. You wouldn't be able to even fit one of T.I. songs in that mix as a DJ. So sonically, I will agree. I don't think he followed that path of what we know trap music to be. But that doesn't mean that he didn't contribute to, the origins of that genre. I do feel like after the album Trap Music, T.I. went and made Urban Legend, had Bring Him Out and all that. He kind of, if he did start trap music, quote unquote, he abandoned it immediately.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have like he had more of a mainstream appeal to his beats and his music that he put out, as opposed to, the deep trap of Gucci, or even, some of the stuff that Jeezy messed with in his albums and mixtapes or whatnot. So there's definitely a sound to it. There's a reason why, there's certain producers of that time that really gets the credit for a lot of those early beats, so like I said, it's a culture, man. It's a sound, it's a look, it's the way people talk, it's the way people dress. It was some of the beats, and I feel like, if we're gonna make a good argument, I wouldn't say T.I. was the most trap artist of that culture at the time, but I feel like he did contribute to the subculture of it. And there's a reason why that when they talk about that time, they do have to put T.I., Gucci, Jeezy all in that conversation.
Now, where do the Hot Boys fit in all of this? Because people said the piano sounds and this and that. I thought Manny Fresh, right? I think Manny Fresh kind of teeters that line between New Orleans bounce and what people may, consider trap music down the line, right? The Hot Boys have announced, or Wayne has announced, that the Hot Boys are going to reunite on the stage at the Louisiana Fest. And people are going crazy, as they should, because this is something that is years in the making. BG just got out of jail, what was that, last year? And he was locked up for like 8 years, man. Felt like, something like that. And Turk was away for a minute too. So this is a big deal for the Hot Boys to get together. Like, what are your thoughts on this reunion? And what are some of your, were you a Hot Boys fan like that?
Yes, I was a big Cash Money fan. It was funny. I was listening to Sirius FM on like Sunday, and they had Manny Fresh and Juvie hosting there, and it was like revisiting a lot of their hits while hosting on Sirius FM. And Manny Fresh was telling a story about the beginning of Cash Money and how Cash Money.
13 years. I apologize. I don't want to skip them on the years. Damn, that's a long fucking time, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. Manny, he was talking about how Cash Money originally was a bounce label, and then they had artist styles on Cash Money that were bounce artists beforehand, and then they start doing the Hot Boys thing, and Juvie popped off, and it went from there. So for them to still be relevant as a label to this day with what it evolutionized to be is a true testament to Birdman and Slim as well.
Yeah.
But the Hot Boys itself, man, like I grew up listening to a lot of that stuff. I grew up off Jeezy. I mean, I'm keep on saying Jeezy. I grew up off Juvie. You know what I'm saying? Like when Juvie dropped, it was amazing. You know, Juvie was
100
amazing.
Degrees had everything on lock.
400 Degrees, man. Project English. You know what I'm saying? Like he was that guy, and then BG was that guy, and then Wayne hit the ground running and did what he did. I mean, we got to give some respect to Turk and what he did on Hot Boy stuff as well, because Turk was he did he contributed, he did his thing with the whole Hot Boys thing as well. So I hope it happens. I'm tired of it being built up that they're gonna do a Hot Boys reunion and then some drama unfolds. I really hope they really get together and they do it, because I was just reading that Master P got some involvement with how the Super Bowl stuff is gonna go in New Orleans, and I would love to feel that essence of that beginning Cash Money or that No Limit run. If we can get a mix of both of those on that Super Bowl stage, man, that would be great, man.
You know what would be great too, man? I know that Versus is gearing back up, but and a lot of people are like, well, what Versus could be next? I would love to see a Cash Money No Limit Versus, man. That would be cool.
The thing that I feel like what's going to happen with that, because like I said, a lot of people are prisoners of time and sometimes they'll go back and revisit. I would love to see that, from me being fans of both, but I feel like people are going to favor Cash Money because they're more familiar with Cash Money records than they are of No Limit. And people got to remember, Master P was a mastermind. He was one of these people that was one of the best in the beginning as showing you guys what the independent run looks like. All of these artists on No Limit, they released the album. We can't say that about Cash Money. No knock to Cash Money, but there's a lot of artists that went over there to Cash Money and never got to release an album.
Yeah, I think Cash Money's core was so strong that anybody who came in outside of that didn't have as much of a chance. The only person in the core of Cash Money that didn't go out there and really have that solo success was Turk, because the big timers had their time. BG had his time. Wayne clearly had his time, and Juvenile had his time. I think that even with Turk, I remember when he released his single, "It's Emily Water to Be the Thug That I Be." It was underwhelming, even from a production standpoint. And I think at that point, it's kind of like when RZA was producing everything for Wu-Tang. I think by the time it got to Turk, Manny was burnt out. You know what I'm saying? Like all of the beats that Manny had to make for Juvenile's solo album, for Juvenile's second album. Well, not second album.
He was working, man.
The follow-up from 400 Degrees. Hot Boys album, Guerrilla Warfare. BG's album, Wayne's album, Big Timers album. Now we on Turk's album. I'm burnt out, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and like I said,
MVP of Cash Money, for real.
Yeah, and we really
is the MVP of Cash Money record.
He really is. And we really, like I said, I know we're talking about the Hot Boys. We really gotta give Master P his credit for kind of laying out that blueprint that they were, they existed at the same time in the beginning. I think No Limit was a little bit beforehand, as far as how they put out music to the world versus that Cash Money. It was kind of neck and neck at the time, but
Cash Money was more local where No Limit broke. You know what I'm saying? Like No Limit goes all the way back to the days when Master P was in the Bay. But like you said, when Master P got to New Orleans and connected with, Beats by the Pound, Medicine Men, and all of that stuff, I remember the first hit from No Limit was Bout It. That was 95.
Yeah, man.
And
Man, come on, man.
Cash Money broke around 98. I mean, I heard Soldier Rag in 97. But I didn't know who Juvenile was like that. But I knew who they were in 98.
Yeah. Like
Lord with the super chat says Tupac started trap music. You got me trapped. There we go. We got to give Pac credit for everything. DJ Bruce Almighty with the super chat says it's funny we're having this convo because T.I. recently said in an article the trap music was inspired by Volume 1 by Jay-Z. See, this is the stuff that Big Gip was talking about, man. Like when T.I. had the Jay-Z shirt on the Bring 'Em Out video. It's like, I get it. And we're all inspired by a lot of stuff, but it's okay to say the local inspirations too. We all know that Cool Breeze had to inspire T.I. as well. I mean, come on, man.
Is it because it's Jay? I mean, because Lil Wayne will say Jay is a big inspiration to him as well.
Yeah, Jay, listen, Jay was the man in the late 90s. So yeah,
I think he's the blueprint for what you want to be as far as a rap superstar at the time.
True.
It has everything that I think when they say the influence like that, I think that's what they're really meaning. His business mind, the way he carried himself as a rap superstar. I think that the way his stuff translated outside music, I think that's more so the influence that these artists are speaking to. And then sometimes it is the music. Sometimes it is a period of time they listen to it and they were like, I'm inspired by that, you know? So it's not crazy.
And I will say this, you're right. Jay at that time period is the blueprint for, you know, what an artist wants to be, what an MC wants to be. You want to be able to get that street success, that street adoration, and be able to still have crossover success seamlessly. You make the radio hits and you make the street records also. Like, I think when a lot of people like let's just say a Nelly, and I want to say B.O.B. too, you have the ability to make these crossover hit records like on a whim. But somehow down the line, after you're continuously making these big hit records that you're great at making, you want to make some street shit because you feel a way about the fact that niggas in the street saying you ain't making nothing in the street. And Jay is a great median of both of those, right? Nobody could ever say that he ain't got stuff to feed the street. And I think that, yeah, that's why he kind of was the mark on that. And he had the crossover, you know, hit records too. Well, I mean, this is some of the stuff that people are saying about our Nas and Jay matchup thing. Speaking of which, they said no features. What do you think about that? And I think the no features is fair. But are we talking about just features that Jay was on somebody else's song? Or if we're talking about records that like Money Cash Hoes that got DMX on it? What do you think about the no features?
Nah, I'm not gonna agree to that because there's
You're not gonna agree to the no features? Why not?
Because there's some bangers with him that does have features on hooks or whatever or guest verse.
Okay, all right.
Because in the real verses, that wasn't a rule. In the real verses, that wasn't a rule. How do you like? We look at Dipset versus the Lots. You know, a lot of their stuff was features, and they need Dipset in that. So, like, come on, man. The real verses don't have features. Come on, man. You say his catalog is better. Prove to me how his catalog is better. So
you're gonna play some records that Jay is featured on that aren't Jay records.
I don't even have to go to records that he's just featured on like that.
I don't think you do.
He has some, but I don't even have to do that to you because like I said, people are prisoners of the time, and we must remember that there's some monstrous tracks that Jay has features on that may be hooks, that may be guest verses. Like say that, like telling me no features is telling me I can't play nigga what nigga who Originator 99. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. I think it's fair to be able to play a record that, you know, he got a feature on. I mean, shit, Volume 2 is a bunch of features. But when we're talking about records that he's featured on, I mean, listen, I don't care because I don't think that he has really great, I'm going to say this like this. When it comes to matching up with Nas, I don't think he has any features that are going to help you like that anyway.
You gotta pop up and show niggas, man. I promise you.
I
think people are getting caught up.
What do you think his
caught up in a moment?
And top 3 features are?
Yeah, people are getting caught in a moment, and they're being prisoners of the time because the album runs. And we must remember why Jay gets the title that he gets. And we must not forget that because we're prisoners of the moment. Not outside of internet slander, I don't hear nobody else talking like that. So I'm saying we must remind people why people say Jay is their inspiration. We must remind people why Jay gets the title that he gets. Nah.
I think Jay's storytelling, I think his storytelling ability, I don't know if Jay's even a top 10 storyteller in the genre.
Okay.
I don't. I think that Cube's a better storyteller. I think that obviously Nas, Scarface, Ghostface, Slick Rick, Biggie, that's 6 right there. I think Pac's a better storyteller. That's 7. I think Kendrick's a better storyteller. Is that fair?
You know what? The thing about versus stuff it's about, you know, this is a prime example. When I looked at the lots and Dipset stuff, everybody was like, man, Dipset's gonna kill the lots.
I said that, and I was
wrong.
What
I'm saying? People's Dipset's gonna kill the lots. And the lots had to show them why the culture have them win. They're not even going about their showmanship. Their showmanship was amazing.
Right.
Dipset is, I love Dipset, but they was being too school that day.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, once it started going. So
you could tell who tours more, right? You could tell who's more in practice. You could tell who's more unified, who works together more. And those are things that at least I didn't factor in. I thought that, when Dipset plays, I really mean it. Or Cam plays like, oh boy, it was gonna like blow them out. And I didn't even factor in some of the mixtape stuff that the Locks had and the way they were able to translate that. The Locks are way better performers.
That's what I'm saying. Like, let's put it like this: you put Nas and you put Jay in that arena and do a versus, and you mean to tell me you think Jay is not going to come out on top? Jay can go back to Reasonable Doubt, just like Nas can go back to Illmatic, which I say I'm giving it credit. Illmatic sits on that hall as one of the best albums of all time, not just hip hop, best albums of all time, right?
I do think Jay's a better performer than Nas.
Jay's a better performer. Jay has a bigger records than Nas. And
are they better though?
Is he better? What do you think
Jay's best like lyrical performance on a hit single is? Because when I think about Nas, If I Ruled the World, right, which I'm not a huge fan of, he's spitting on there. You know what I'm saying? Like, have a city that reverse fiends to Willies, sound foul every girl I meet to go downtown. I open every cell in Attica, send them to Africa. Like, he's rapping on some shit on there. Like, I'm trying to think of a Jay single where he's really spitting to that level. There was a hit song.
Come on, man.
I'm just saying. I love Jay. I'm trying to, because it seems like on his hit songs, he kind of, dials it down a little bit.
He got deep cuts on Reasonable Doubt alone.
Yeah. His deep cuts aren't even a question. Like, his B-sides are his best songs, in my opinion. The hit songs, I don't know. The hit songs don't, if somebody came from outer space and was like, yo, man, show me why Jay-Z's the best.
If you line Jay-Z's hits to what is Nas, you want to know what's funny? Nas has to be in a bag that he stays in, because if he goes outside that bag, it never translates well. Anytime he tried to experiment and versatile outside of that, it never did well for him.
I used to agree with that. In the 90s or somewhat, I would agree with that, because I think that people like Pac and Big, they were able to translate some of those things a little bit better than he was at the time. But over time, I think that that's changed a little bit, but the game's changed to the point where there's really no litmus test for that outside of our ears. Mad Max to the super chat says, LOL, Blackout getting around. He said, Blackout is getting around off of Nas. Let's stop. Really? I don't think you play Blackout. I think you got to go with the heavy hitters like the Evils. You got to go with, if we're talking Reasonable Doubt, you got to go with Can I Live? Can I Live is epic.
Got Brooklyn's Finest.
Not a big fan of Brooklyn's Finest. I got to be honest. I mean, it's cool. And maybe because Dead Presidents is my favorite Jay-Z song, or top 3 Jay song for me. I skip Brooklyn's Finest all the time just to get the Dead Presidents.
Now we don't like Brooklyn's Finest.
I'm not a big fan. I'm not saying it's whack or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But if we're talking about Reasonable Doubt, I like Can't Knock the Hustle over Brooklyn's Finest. I like Dead Presidents over Brooklyn's Finest. I like Can I Live over Brooklyn's Finest. I like The Evils over Brooklyn's Finest. I even like Bring It On over Brooklyn's Finest.
You know,
Why?
like I said, man, whenever
Because if you play Brooklyn's Finest, you know what I'm gonna play? Life's a Bitch. And Life's a Bitch is a better song than Brooklyn.
Look, man, when we line these up and we want to go, if we go hit for hit, we know who got that. If we want to go monstrous tracks, we know who got that. If you want to stay in, you know, there's a bag that Nas. It, like I said, to the core Nas fans, everything you play compared to whatever track from Jay I'm gonna play, they're gonna, oh, he watched Jay, he watched Jay. If we get on that bigger stage and we play those tracks, Jay is gonna translate over Nas.
Are you gonna play Give It To Me? I mean, let me not say that. Would you play a record like a Give It To Me if you had to play Jay's 20 strongest records?
I wouldn't have to.
Okay.
But if I'm on that big stage when there's a lot of people, I'm gonna play Give It To Me.
I'm probably not gonna play Hate Me Now. I saw somebody say it in the chat. I mean, I'm personally not a big fan of it. I don't believe in it like that. And I think when you're doing these matchups, you have to believe in the record that you're gonna play, because that's where you messed up. I overthought when we did Kanye West's catalog. I overthought one, and I slipped up because I went against my better judgment. But yeah, a song like a Hate Me Now, I wouldn't even really know where to position it up against somebody like a Jay.
Like I said, for me, I'm looking at the stage of where stuff is being presented. I'm looking at we got to look at my demo. We got to look. There's more Nas fans I've encountered through our conversation with this that I've ever seen in my life.
Well, welcome to the show.
And that doesn't take away from me being like, you know, there was one point that killed me, man. There was one point, and I don't like to look at comments at all because I'm like, people are gonna feel what they feel. There was one comment that killed me that somebody said Nas can't be in my top 5 because I don't listen to him in my car. Newsflash, there's a lot of my favorite artists, top artists in my top 5 I don't listen to in my car.
That's interesting though. I kind of
that's crazy.
I understand where they're coming from though, because like, when you're in your car, that's when you're listening to music, you know, the most, or on a different level.
Is it a road trip, or am I going out to go be outside? Because I'm going out to be outside. I'm listening to Future. I'm listening to Old Migos. I'm listening. There's something. I'm not getting in there and listening to Kendrick. Like I don't think about it. I could have my top 5 and don't have to listen to them in my car.
I will say this.
There's a time and place. When I know there's certain things that I'm doing, I'm not putting on a Nas record. If I'm sitting down and want to have my headphones on, I just want to vibe, I'm listening to Nas. But there's a time and place for different vibes of what I listen to, because I'm not listening to my top 5 in that car. That makes me less credible. That sounds crazy.
Well, I mean, I understand where they're coming from with that, but I will say this. I do recognize Kendrick's talent and his lyrical ability, and I do think that he is above a lot of people that I listen to more frequent than him. But like you said, I still recognize where Kendrick is and what his talent is and his talent level, even if I'm not playing his music like that when I ride out. Because I don't really play Kendrick much at all. I mean, maybe I should play him more.
I love Kendrick's albums, but when I'm driving, I'm not throwing on Kendrick, dog. Like I'm like there's some songs
that I love.
Good Kid, Every Blue Moon, but that's not what I'm listening to in my car, bro. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. Me as a 34-year-old man that's still kind of outside sometimes, there's certain records that I want to hear depending on where I'm going. And I'm not getting in my car and say, man, I want to listen to Illmatic today. Man, I want to listen to It Was Written Today. Same reason why I'm not getting
Illmatic's more in my house type of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll play Illmatic when I'm, you know what I'm saying, just chilling really and just kind of like reflecting and just put it on and let it ride. You're right. I mean, I don't know, man. Illmatic's a little different because there's certain songs I'll play in the ride. I'll play The World Is Yours. But that's one of those albums that if you play one song, you got to end up playing the whole thing. Do you play Reasonable Doubt in the ride then?
I listen to certain songs off of it in the ride, but not all the time. Like I can go, like there's certain records that to me, I listen to my music based on my mood, where I'm going, what I'm trying to, if I'm going somewhere and I want that, I want to, get that energy up, there's certain records I go listen to, man. Like, just because I'm not playing my favorite art, like think about it, man. I'll go listen to Future. I'll go listen to Migos. I'll go listen to some Dirt. I'll go listen to some Vaughn or something like that in my car. None of those people are in my top 5.
All right, so as a DJ, because you were a DJ, for the people who don't know, thumbs up in the chat. What was your, I guess, strategy, if you will, when, you know what I'm saying, you were DJing in hip hop spots?
Knowing your demographic, knowing your crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, if I was to play everything that I just consider my favorite artists, people could probably be walking out that club because that's not what they came here to hear. And that's not saying Nas is trash. That's not saying Jay is trash. It's just saying there's a time and place for certain things. As a DJ, one of the biggest things you want to take into consideration is knowing your demo. That's half the battle. I've been in places where DJs are playing records that has nothing to do with that has nothing to do or to relation to what crowd is here. It's an older crowd and you playing trap. It's a R&B concert and you playing booty music. You know what I'm saying? There you have to know your demo, bro. Knowing your crowd is one of the biggest things to me.
Did you have go-to records though, where it was like, if you played something that you maybe took a chance on, or it didn't connect with the crowd, what was that record that, what I'm saying, you would go to that you knew would get people back on track?
One of the biggest things for me is being able that DJ needs to do is being able to know how to play hit after hit. DJing looks easy and stuff now because we have Seratos, we have these digital controllers. People can even DJ from the iPad now. You know what I'm saying? Like or their phone. You feel me? A DJ's job is to consistently keep the party going. And there was some days where it's like I would go and I'll go listen to sets by DJs that were live, hearing the crowd response and all of that stuff. There's times where I'll go and I'll be in the same room and I'm seeing how certain records sound, wide as far as listening to them on the speakers, how it goes. Like there's a science to it that people don't understand because it looks so easy throughout the time. I think one of the biggest things that I seen was when I was in Birmingham, Alabama, right? I was in Birmingham. And down here in Florida is sort of a thing, or a lot of DJs, period. Now they do a lot of yelling over the mic, a lot of MC wise of that, which works for the culture and where that club is going. When I was in Birmingham, I was at an R&B mostly event. It started off R&B mostly. It kind of went into the new current era of music. And I've seen people take a Sexy Red record, take a City Girls record and find a way to mix it with some joint from the time that was in the past and make it flow where nobody's thrown off by it. I was amazed by that. You have to be able to know your crowd, keep the party going, play the hits back to back. And sometimes I like when DJs will go and they're playing new music and they'll go find something that's old and they'll throw it in the mix and make us remember it like we heard it for the first time. That's amazing to me, man. So there's times and places for certain records, certain music, and knowing the demo. There's times where I'm DJ and I'm not playing no Jay-Z at certain records. I'm in Jacksonville. A lot of people are not, they're not looking to hear Jay-Z. Jay-Z's my personal favorite. Who gives a damn? They came to hear some Future.
You got a job to do.
They came to hear whatever it is that's hot at the time they want to hear. They don't want to hear so there's a time and place for it, man. As a DJ, like I said, you have to know your crowd, you have to know your demo, and you have to learn how to consistently keep the party going and playing the hits, whether it's old or new. I think a DJ is a great DJ when you know how to mix the new with the old and still keep the party going effortlessly.
My dream is to DJ once a year. I want to do that. I want to make sure that I DJ somewhere. No matter how big or small the crowd is, once a year. I want to do that. That one mega mix. Mad Max with the super chat says, "You don't play Dot because it's shit, Mike." You just ain't realized. Mad Max is the #1 Kendrick hater. He says, I don't play Dot ever. He's got songs that just sit on the phone, never get no burn. He's poop. Eminem with a black face. Did you ever throw Eminem in the mix as a DJ?
Never. And that's not even shitting on Mix. Is I mean on M. It's just like I'm looking at my demo, and most of them probably don't even listen to M.
Yeah.
You know,
but somehow
like
they'll tell you top five.
I can't think the way that I listen to music and the way I consume stuff is the way that everybody else is. And we get caught in our arguments sometimes when debating music with others because we're throwing our personal stuff into it, which is all subjective at the end of the day. But for me,
think about what I could, did you play any of those Nicki records that were more pop crossover?
I've played Nicki records that's not her most popular.
Exactly.
I played a Nicki record that had Tyga on it, like and it wasn't considered one of her greatest hits, but it was the beat. It was a dance record. You feel me? Like I knew the women when I DJ. I'm not DJing for the fellas. I'm DJing for the ladies. And like if it's this new current era of the younger generation, I'm DJing for the women because you have women there that dance or whatever. That's gonna make the fellas come. That's gonna make the fellas pay to get in. We gonna pack this out. We play for the women. You know,
the promoters ain't paying you to play for the guys.
Exactly. No. It's a whole thing to this. Like, and I'm not gonna play my personal favorites either. Like, just because I love this record, that don't mean everybody else do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we played what our personal favorite is, a lot of people would probably be walking out the clubs.
Well, as a DJ,
we have to play a lot of stuff we don't want to hear, that we don't personally hear.
As a DJ, though, how do you as a DJ, how do you take those chances? Because I think maybe me as like, you know what I'm saying, as a music lover, when you're out sometimes and the DJ surprises you with like a imaginary player or play like Abandoned Ship by Busta Rhymes or something, like, whoa, that's different. When do you pick your spots to say, you know what, I'm gonna play something I want to hear and see if people connect with it? Is that like early on in the crowd?
I think it just depends on your style and the place where it's happening. You know, I visited like I say when I go to like places like Vegas or big cities that usually have more of a top 40 club. I've heard some amazing mixes of from pop music to R&B to hip hop to some conscious records being played over the newer beats. And like I find it is amazing, man. I feel like it's not a one size fit all for DJs. There's all kind of DJs. One of my favorite DJs of all time is Jazzy Jeff. And I feel like Jazzy Jeff has the ability. You think those people don't know how to play to this new generation of music? You got something coming. You go listen to a set by one of them and see them get busy playing old stuff and newer records. And I feel like that's a skill, and it's a lost skill because we get caught up in the regions that we're in and what people want to hear. A real DJ know how to play universally for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And everybody has their own niche. If some people want to be like I only want to stick to this demographic or whatever, that's not even taken away from their skill or their ability. They just know that that's their box. That's what works for them. That's their bag for them. But for me, my personal thing is I see that DJs that know how to play everything and mix it so well. Those are the DJs that I love.
So what are the expectations for Wayne on the Carter 6? Wayne just reported live from the studio saying that he's recording the Carter 6. What are the expectations there?
I don't have expectations for Wayne because I feel like he's exceeded a lot of stuff that I expect from him right now. My only expectation is just let it be good music. I don't care what the subject matter is. I don't care if you talking about the sky being blue, make it sound good, bro. That's what we're missing now.
I think he's rapping at a real high level now. Like that album that he did with 2 Chainz, he was rapping at a high level.
His verse on the Corday record is crazy. You know, we know he has the lyrical ability to be able to still spit at a high level. It just make good songs, man. Make good music. I didn't really like the last Carter as much. There was some records on there, but I didn't really like dig that album too much. But man, I'm looking forward to what he has to do. Only thing he's competing with is himself at this point. He doesn't have he has nothing else to prove. Just make good music because there's a lack of good
last Carter. You talking about Carter 5? I think that was more of a timing thing, right? I think there were a lot of records that were just sitting there we talk about not aging well. I think you can tell, especially with how drastically sounds change in hip hop. You could tell when a record's a little older than another record, right? You could tell that he recorded this album over a period of time. And I hope with this one, this was all recorded in a similar period, because Wayne's that kind of artist where you don't want to hear stuff that's like, 3 years old next to something that he made yesterday. I'd rather Wayne put out an album where, it was made over like, a 3-month period or whatever, where it's all this stuff is coming from a similar time period. Like, he's not the guy like let's see, Kanye West with the College Dropout. You could tell that album was made over a period of time, but it still worked because he's a producer and he's telling his life story, whatever, that works. But with Wayne, it's you could tell when something's older, and I think that was the problem with the Carter 5.
I agree, because it sat for a minute with with like Baby and stuff, right? With Birdman.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you could tell that with a lot of records. So I hope it's newer. I hope it's fresher as far as the records he put out. Because it's probably tons of music that Wayne's sitting on that's unreleased. It's probably tons. Did you like Funeral? Did you like the Funeral record album?
I didn't love Funeral like that.
Funeral either.
Yeah. I think that but I like the way he's rapping right now. I'll say that. As long as the production's on point and shit. He was working with Havoc on the album with 2 Chainz. They had some pretty dope beats on there as well.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Swiss Beats fan, but I like when Swiss Beats and Wayne connect, actually. And I would like to see more of that as well. I didn't really love what's the song they did on the Carter 5? Where they did the special delivery remake. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I don't even know the title.
Somebody in the chat, but yeah. It was I don't want to see them do that, but I think that Swiss Beats being connected on there, get some up and coming producers, it's hot right now. I would like to see some Metro and Wayne type of stuff going on too.
Yeah, I just want to see him just get in his bag and just be creative and just be Wayne, man. Like that's one of the things I just love about Wayne is just he goes out there and he just does Wayne. And I feel like when he does that, that's when we get the best music from him, is when he's just out there. Sometimes you can see when he's being experimental and it probably doesn't go over for some people. But when Wayne is in his bag, he's really getting at it. And I know he's gonna use probably a multitude of producers, but I really hope that we get a good flow of an album and it's not sounding like you're just taking songs out the vault and just seeing what stick and what stick. And right. I really hope that he puts effort into this being a great album, and I can look forward to hearing that from him, because like I said, what we're lacking right now is just good music. I don't even care about the albums at this point. If you're going to release singles, I need that to be of quality. There's not a lot of good quality music right now.
What's the song of the year right now, you think? What do you think is hip-hop?
We have to, not like us, man. Not like us. Like and that's not even being biased of a Kendrick versus
Drake. It is what it is.
You can't ignore the song. You hear it everywhere you go. You seeing marching bands playing it at football games now. I'm in department stores and I'm hearing it. Every time I turn on the radio, it's on. Like, we can't get away from it, man. Like, I find myself in my regular day just saying a bar or a line out of the song, like without just subconsciously. So that is the song of the year. The album of the year, though, for me, is not even a hip hop record. It's not even a hip hop album, sadly. It's Marsha Ambrosius, Casablanca.
You think Marsha Ambrosius Casablanca's album of the year?
Let's talk about who else dropped this year.
I mean, right now I got Common and Pete Rock, Auditorium, Volume 1. I got that one. It's my close second. You know what? Killer Mike is a close second as well. Killer
Mike has been on a tear. He has.
Yeah. Killer Mike's new album is really, really dope.
He has been on a tear. There hasn't been. I just can't get with any of these albums that has dropped so far. I mean, this Big Sean album is kind of like, I gotta sit on it again, man.
I gotta go back and listen to that too.
Yeah, I gotta sit on it. I thought it really was gonna be like, but
what do you think? I want to ask you this because I would say Big Sean. Big Sean came out when you were in college.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
probably yeah.
Yeah. What do you think Big Sean's missing, or is he missing anything?
Well, the biggest thing against Big Sean was consistency. And when I say consistency, not as far as like just only dropping music, but he has a thing where he'll drop something that's dope and then he'll drop something that's trash and then he'll disappear. And then it's like he comes back, do it, throw something out there to check the temperature, and then he disappeared completely. So I mean, he even says it in his interview. He did an interview with Charlamagne. He said that's one of the biggest indictments on himself is, of course, is consistency. I feel like he needs to get out of his own head when it comes to music. And this is a thing that a lot of artists suffer. It's like I think that they listen to a lot of the internet stuff. They listen to a lot of the critics. They listen to a lot of the blogs, the podcasters, and it takes them away.
Wilder's like that too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. He's one of the biggest ones when it comes to that. And I'm wondering what happened with that album. He put out a single and Wale, what happened to that whole album coming about? So that's another thing too.
Oh, Big Sean.
Last year I wrote that article.
Yeah, right. Big Sean or Wale, and why?
I'll take Wale. I think Wale has the better catalog of music than Big Sean. Even with the mixtapes. The last Big Sean project I liked was I Decided.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that was the name of it. I Decided. And I feel like that was a good album. It's just like the thing that I liked about Big Sean is he brought a new type of swag in when he came, and I feel like somehow he got away from it and it died, bro. It's just his and I feel like he knows it, he acknowledges it, and he wants to give the people what they want to hear. And I'm glad he's kind of honing out the noise, but you could tell when he was delaying and playing around with when he wanted to put it out. I feel like that was him getting in the head again. And this could have been a moment for you to show, I'm back. And I feel like it's kind of, underperforming the expectations of what we were looking for from him. So I would definitely
think Sean's rap voice kind of holds him back. I think the skills are there. I think the notable records are there. I mean, he's got all kind of certifications, but yeah, I mean, we talk about the consistency with the projects from end to end. I think when your rap voice isn't, what
is that a factor though? Because some people say that about like Kendrick,
Yeah. I was gonna say when I was saying this, I'm like, well, this kind of applies to Kendrick too.
Actually. And people were saying that going all the way back to Section 80, so
I don't like Kendrick's rap voice like that.
Yeah, I think it's just about just making good albums, making good content. Because like I said, man, like I'm a person that I was big on Wale. Like I said, people go revisit that article I wrote. I don't want to go through all that again. Like as far as what I talk about on there, go revisit that. And I referred to a lot of his projects and his work. And I feel like that was one thing about Wale too. He gets away from what we love him for so much. And when you start, questioning your own music and questioning yourself, I think that's when the creativity dies. Just make good music, bro. That's all we ask. Just make good music.
Yeah, Wale announced that he was signing the Def Jam, right?
Def Jam.
And we heard nothing.
We heard a single, which it was a cool single, but it we didn't get the album. So I'm wondering what's going on with that, man. I really would love to sit down and talk to him. That's what I really would love to do. Because I like when you think about artists like Wale and Big Sean and even an A$AP Rocky, even he's about to drop something. He got a single out right now, but we're thinking about an album from him. And I would love to talk to them because there were mentions of being in that same realm as Kendrick, Drake, and Cole at one point in time. And it's just like they just kind of became like the second or third tier to them. And you see Kendrick, Cole, and Drake has just kept it going where they're the big three. I just would love to hear what is their reflection looking back at where their careers then and what they have left, and wonder what is their mind like when it goes into making an album. Because I feel like the biggest thing from an artist, not even just when we're just talking music, when we're just talking about just being a creative, one of the biggest things is being in your own head and doubting your own ability to be great. And I think
Yeah.
it really does kill the creativity when that's the thing that happens. So I would love to
I
talk to
think
them.
that's what's happening to Drake right now, actually. And you know, I think that where Drake is right now, mentally or musically, if you will, he's questioning, you know, his approach. I'm sure, and I think it was getting there. I know Certified Lover Boys just celebrated 3 years. It's crazy that happened so fast, but I think that's where things were going when he released that. It's like, okay, well, where's the growth? Where's the maturity? And I think a lot of us were saying that because of how frequent we see him. He's out there. And Kendrick drops Mr. Morale. Whether you like the album or not, I'm not a huge fan of the album, but what we can't knock about it, there is growth on there, right? Nobody could say that he didn't grow on there. And so he can at least say that part. And I think now that Kendrick of all people called him out for his lack of growth and, you know, other things or whatever, I think that he's really questioning his approach. And I think Drake is one of those guys right now that might need to dial it back to the artist that people fell in love with originally. You know, the artist that was relatable. I think he's kind of going through some Kanye things where Kanye started off as one of the most relatable artists of his time, possibly ever, and then got so unrelatable that it's like, I don't want to listen to it like that anymore. And I think Drake might not have hit that extreme, but I do think that Drake has definitely lost a lot of people who gravitated to him early because of his current approach. And I'm sure he's questioning his current approach as well.
I I don't even have an opinion on what his direction is at this point. I was saying that he needs to, lay low and whatever. Obviously, that's not happening. He's obviously working on new music. He's putting out stuff 100 gigs or whatever. At this point, I don't know what can save him to the eyes of people. People that are core Drake fans are not going to stop being Drake fans. Like,
Right.
they're solidified. They're going to.
Well, who is Drake's core fan base now, right? Is Drake's core fan base the people who listen to So Far Gone, or is it another fan base now?
No,
And that's why
there's
I compared
people
it to Kanye.
I feel like he has an interesting fan base because the women like Drake, you know. There's people in my age group that still like Drake, and then there's a younger fan base that love Drake, and in their eyes, he's their GOAT.
Right.
So he has an interesting fan base that a lot of your favorite rappers and of this generation, I would say, could hone in on. And it's interesting because going back to LL,
Mm-hmm.
one of the core things about LL is LL in the early stages had a lot of street love. Then
Yeah.
he transitioned and had a lot of ladies love. And that ladies love took him to a whole nother level. And there's only certain artists that I've seen throughout the span of hip hop. We're talking about that 80s to where it's at now. There's
Yeah.
only certain
About
artists that have been able
45
to.
years, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's only certain artists that could be able to translate to, to different crowds, and it's amazing. We see LL, then we seen it with Pac. Pac had that appeal as well. Then we seen it with you know, we could even say DMX. There's people love X. I seen grown men crying in the crowd when DMX was doing his prayer, bro. Like,
The women love DMX too.
yeah, women love DMX. So DMX, I even seen it a little bit with Ja Rule before 50, and then 50 came. There are certain artists that have their ring and they're at the top, but then there's a lot of artists that has just this crazy fan base. They just got it. And I feel like you could actually count them on a hand. And Drake is one of those people that kind of got that fan base. So whatever he puts out at this point, his core fans are gonna support it, and the people that don't like it don't like it. So I really don't know what he's doing with this, with this new run of music or what we're gonna look forward to. But honestly, I'm just ready for some people that hasn't been shining or some up and comers to come through and
Right.
create a new wave. I'm ready to hear what they have to say because right now hip hop is in a stalemate. And I know there's people that listen to, a lot of underground artists and they may have their favorites, but I'm talking about the overall general consensus of music, of like hip hop music is in a stale, and it's in a stale moment right now. It's like that rise that never went up and peaked and dropped. And it's just like it's the line is right here. If we have a graph, hip hop is just here, and it's been here for the last few years. Meek and Rick Ross put out that album last year. That's a throwaway. There's a lot of, man, I'm just trying to figure out
It's
what's,
an opportunity for somebody to come through with a
yeah,
breakthrough,
man. It's
you know,
just
and it doesn't even have to be anybody quote unquote new, because it's hard to really decipher who's really new because everybody's made a mixtape or two at this point, but just a breakthrough moment. But see, you got to have a breakthrough moment now, you gotta have, like you said, something different, and you gotta have a lot of music too, and you gotta be ready to back up something because when you drop a dope tape right now, people are like, okay, what else you got?
you know what I wonder? I wonder with that whole Drake and Kendrick beef. I wonder were there artists that are planning on dropping around that time frame that they just even didn't even think about it because of that. Because when that Drake and Kendrick beef happened,
That was all
nobody
everybody
cared
talking
about
about.
anything else as far
Yeah,
as what's going on in hip hop. Everything was Drake and Kendrick, from the podcast to the media to radio to it was just like that was a moment. So anybody who dropped at that moment, nobody cared unless it was cold, because people
and
wanted to hear what you had to say.
you're right though. It's like it was a gift and a curse because it was a shot in the arm for hip hop with the blogs and what I'm
Mhm.
saying, podcasts, and just for the streams and all of that, the back and forth, and people were able to talk about it. But after it was over, it just was a straight up drop off.
Yeah, yeah,
Content just a lot of podcasters didn't know what to talk about after that. It was over, like,
yeah, man. And it's just like
and it's unfortunate.
so it makes me wonder. I wonder what artists were like, man, they had it in their mind, I'm gonna drop it that time. And then when that happened, they're like, man, I'm probably not even gonna drop this year. Like, or when people push their stuff back, because it kind of, like I said, it was a gift and a curse with them, because it got people talking about hip hop again. We have people that are not even, really hip hop heads. I was talking about. We had the casual hip hop fans talking about this.
Yeah,
And it was big, and it overshadowed anything else anybody else was doing it in hip hop. Nobody else was dropping stuff. And usually when we have big beats, we get good music that follows that. That's the interesting thing on this. And it's still fresh. So we're not going to rule that out, but I haven't heard the good music that follows up after
yeah.
the beef yet.
I
So
do
I'm
think
looking
that
for
we
that.
should have gotten an album from both of
Yeah.
them after this. And I think that since we're in an era now where, you're not, people don't press you to make an album if you got a hit song, because the fact that Not Like Us is clearly the song of the year and the biggest hip hop song, possibly the biggest song of 2024, and it doesn't have an album to connect with is literally a sign of the times. That would never happen in any other era. There's never going to be a record label that is not going to capitalize off of a hit song like that.
I mean, what's the biggest indictment on where hip hop is now is we don't have a lot of people in the culture really running the show. We have people in the culture that is going with what those powers that may be is telling them to do. And it's bad for the culture. It's bad for hip hop. It's bad for any time, and not knocking her hustle, but anytime when Sexy Red is like one of the biggest artists at the time, it says a lot of where we are in hip hop culture. It says a lot of where we are in hip hop music. And it's not taken away from her, whatever her art is, whatever. Everybody has their own level of art. I mean, of art, but it has to be a balance, and we don't have balance. Like, if you think about any genre of music, there were people that there were artists that came out that some people would consider, oh, that's clown music, that's play music. We don't care about that. That's party music, or that's booty music. That's this music. Like, there's always going to be hip hop purists. There's going to be mainstream, more so your pop records. And then you're going to have, some trash, and you're going to have ones that people are not taking too serious. It's fun, so we don't have that balance no more. Because even when we were in the core of hip hop, there was an artist that nobody took serious like that. It was all just fun music.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know, man. I feel like the internet is sort of to blame for that. And I feel like streaming is a big thing to blame about it, because there's a lot of artists that don't want to create music art because they're not getting paid from it. They're like, my bread and butter is not making albums. Yeah, I'm gonna make this album, it's gonna get these streams, millions of streams. The money's not coming from that. Then I gotta listen to you niggas come on here and talk shit about me all day in your blogs and your platforms and on your message boards and internets and social media. It's not worth it. I'll just go make another business deal that set me up to whatever and live my life. So, like I said, the internet, streaming, there's a lot of things that that is killing hip hop. And we got to get it together, man. We got to get it all on one track. People got to make good music. People got to create a new wave, because
they got to be inspired to do that too. And when you don't have that gratification, or just the monetary gratification as well, that's motivating you, what is actually motivating an up and coming artist or great artist to make great material? I mean, not to say that all of the great albums sold, right? But if you knew that, let's just say Common, and when him and Kanye connected would be, because this is still in the physical CD era. It's like, okay, well, Electric Circus didn't do that well, but you know what? I got the motivation to go out here and get in the studio, and we're going to hit niggas with something that they're going to fuck with. And you could actually see that gratification with people picking up the album, people talking about the album, people physically playing the album, or at least having the album, physically. There's no real gratification for making a great album right now. It really isn't.
I think it's the motivation is one of the worst motivations now. Is just that quick flash in the pan, because we've seen people get viral and strike a hit just off social media. And I think people want to recreate that. They don't care about the longevity. They just care about, man, I got some attention. I didn't know this was gonna crack, but I wanted it to be this. It just
you remember JID song going viral after the
fact? Man, after the fact. So
after the
it's
fact.
Like the TikTok music. It's people want to create moments, and I feel like there's a level of people that want to be famous more than being wealthy in a sense. And there's a little bit of people that don't even care about either or. They just want to be able to have a moment. And I feel like that's reflective in the music. And we're just not getting good music right now. There's a lot of the music is being watered down and played with, and there are certain artists that's being propelled and placed in our face for a reason. And I think it's a bigger conspiracy around that when it has to do with our culture and hip hop and stuff. But
I think the goal is not to be successful in music. It's to actually have something in music that can get you somewhere else to be successful. And that's where music really suffers. It was at one point, people actually were trying to have a career in music. I think people use music as a launching pad at this point, because there's really not a lot of monetary gain in just the music itself. Now you got to do the merch, you got to do, the festivals, you got to do all of these things around it. And you do need the music as the foundation, but it was a little different when your quality of music could actually get you to that next level.
I agree. And we got to blame some of these artists for the glorification of certain stuff of that, because they made it look easy. Now they're older. They could talk about how hard it was or whatever, but they made it look easy. And when you made it look easy, everybody be like, I could do that too. Once they done learn, you can put Pro Tools on the laptop and you can record in your closet in a room. You got a studio here. You don't have to pay for studio time. Once people see, I could just get a controller and put Serato on my computer. I don't have to really learn the skills of being a turntablist. Like, there's certain things that make stuff look easy. Now, I'm not going to hate on the technology of grown, because I benefit off that technology. Hell, I use Serato. I play off a controller. I've never played on an actual vinyl board. I would love to, but it's not a knock to that. It's a knock to how people are not studying and honing in on the craft. And that's what I think the issue is. You can go out there and get you a big hit. If that's what you had in your mind, I just want to be a one-hit wonder, cool because we need one-hit wonders. There's some great one-hit wonders that we could talk about in hip-hop that's going to be played at family reunions, that's going to be played at big parties. We need one-hit wonders. That's fine. But we also need longevity in hip-hop. We also need good music. We need people that are practicing up on their craft. And that's what I think it is. And well, not just this solely, but this is a part of it. Nobody's brushing up on their craft. Nobody feels they have to get better. Nobody feels they have to grow. They're like, I'm gonna keep on feeding you this stuff because you guys are consistently gonna keep on listening to it. And then I feel like there's exec heads that think that something that is a flash in the pot because they see it on TikTok, they think that's what Black culture is, and that's not what Black culture is. When you go see certain artists that they're pushing in our face, and usually when we look at hip hop, for me, I look at what's reflective to the culture in these artists. And I feel like we're not getting that right now because that's not the general consensus of what our culture is about, what they're doing right now in hip hop. That's what you think is cool to us and you put in our face. And then eventually throughout the redundancy of it, it's starting to be ingrained and people follow along, whatever that is. I remember the
people got to get creative. Go ahead. All right.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, the people still had a say-so in this hip-hop thing. And I feel like people are going with what the internet riling up is and not looking at what the culture really is. I remember people say when you listen to old or Drink Champs interviews and stuff like that, they'll say the same thing you was hearing as music, you can go out in the club and see. You can walk out the street and see. And I don't know, somehow that balance has been knocked off, man. You can go though.
I don't think that an artist or a group would have the budget, time, or just experience to be able to make an Akumana in this time. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, you can go and record anywhere. It takes a big studio and big studio time and a bunch of engineers and musicians and vocalists, songwriters, all of those things to make an album like Akumana. You really have a real horn section in there playing Spodioti Dobalicious. You really have a live bass playing the bass line on records like that. People aren't going to do that anymore. You know, first of all, most people don't even know how to do that at this point, and they don't have to do that to put out a record that's going to generate money. And you're not going to be able to ask your label, yo, I need a budget of, $50K, $100K, just because I want to bring in these musicians for a rap song. They're going to be like, nah. You know what I'm saying? Now, where I think Outkast was able to skate on that back then, labels were willing to pay for sample clearances. And I think they were able to get a sample clearance type of budget and actually go out there and get real musicians to come in and create some new stuff. But again, you got to have that creative mind as well. And I think with that whole flash in the pan mentality, and I got to make something viral, I got to get something that connects, you're not even thinking about getting creative at that point. You're thinking about, how can I connect? How can I actually make this a challenge? How can I actually get this to be a viral moment or a viral song?
Yeah, and I try not to hate on like the younger artists and what these kids and what the teenagers and stuff love now, because I was once a teenager, I was once a kid.
Yeah, we all were.
Hip hop always came from a rebellious place, man. That's what it was born about. It was about a representation of what everyday Black culture is and everyday Black people were. And then it spanned to different cultures. They have their own subcultures and stuff like that. And I just feel like what's being represented right now is not that. And I could double down on saying that. And I just the artists of today are not putting effort into their craft, and that's another thing. And then there's a big place of people thinking the internet is the culture, and it's a part of the culture, but it's not everything. I can't even tell you, like, there was an era, like, even if you were to go back to your era and you were young, you're a teenager, you could think about how y'all were dressing, how y'all were talking, the slang you would use. It was reflective of hip hop culture. And I feel like there's a little bit of that now, but I feel like the internet has more of a hold on that than hip hop culture. And then they kind of go hand in hand from there. I kind of feel like when I look at these teenagers, it's like this. I respect them because I love their fear. I love them being fearless and being able to want to go out there and take those risks and don't give a damn what everybody has to say. But if you're gonna do that, let it be reflective in the music, with effort. Let it be tell a story of what it is for you. So 25 years later, the younger kids can look back at that and get a idea of what it was for y'all back then. It's no different from me going back and looking at stuff in the 80s and be like, oh, that's what
let's hear the love through the speakers. And I'll end us off on something that DJ Cool Herc said, man. Like, every generation defines hip-hop in their own way. And they do. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. The youth takes their own spin of what we previously thought was hip-hop, and they define it in their own way. Jermaine Johnson with a super chat before we get out of here. He says, real rappers still exist. They're just lazy. It's a struggle to name 3 great mainstream rappers today that aren't in their 20s. Yeah, everybody's in their 30s. All right, well, we're going to get up out of here, man. I think that was a great show, man. I'm looking forward to hearing this LL Cool J album on Friday. Can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to talk about the production of it. Appreciate you joining us. And we're going to put a date on that that Jay-Z and Nas thing. I want to make sure that we just get the right platform to do it on. Oh, Web Visibility got a $20 super chat. Let me put some respect on his name real quick. He said there was a documentary by the New York Times discussing how all the rappers stopped writing lyrics. Everything is off the top, punching in the studio. That's one reason why storytelling doesn't exist anymore. Wow. Got to give Jay-Z credit for that one. No, I'm just kidding. Nah, that's Jay. I would say that's Big Jay and Wayne, for real.
Yeah, but you still have to make good music when you do that. And that's the problem.
Jay was able to do it at a high level, and everybody else tried to do it and couldn't do it at the level that he was doing it. I mean, it's just the truth.
I mean, that's what I say. I don't care your method of recording. Just make good music. That's the end all be all. Just make good music. I don't care if you're punching in. I don't care if you got whatever.
Nigga, it's hard to believe that Jay didn't write down some of those records, man. That's incredible that he didn't write down Girls, Girls, Girls in the format that it's in.
But it's not an easy thing to do. It's really not.
No.
It's not easy.
Not to the level that he raps. No.
It's not an easy thing to do. And it's amazing that some of the greatest the greatest songs that we get from some of our favorite records, artists is just crazy how some of it's not written. When I think about Big alone, like when you think about his classic records, it's like, damn, he didn't write that, but then even when you, on the flip side, when we talk about writing and we're looking at Pac's work ethic and how he was just going in there, it was throwing on the beat, and the classic records that came from that.
Incredible, man.
Incredible. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, the art is never gonna die, hopefully, and I hope we keep it alive. But it's just in a slump.
Lyricism has to be the foundation, though.
Yeah, there's a slump right now, man, and it's not looking good right now. But hopefully, something will rise through the ashes, and we'll get a new wave of that new jolt and energy for hip hop music.
I believe it, and we're gonna be on the tipping scale of all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Cheers, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening, guys, and great conversation, man. We're gonna do this again next week for sure.
Yes, sir.
All right.